you doing? Hey, what's up, Cruz? Think how you doing? And first off, gotta say, how you doing? What is up, my good friend? Got my man Joe the Lazy here. And
yo, what up, man?
Glad to have you back. It's always fun having you on, man. Whether it be the disastrous Earthbound clips or fighting our way through a haunted house, literally. Thank you for popping back in. Let's see.
No problem. I'm really excited to be here because we are on a subject I am very familiar with, something that's very near and dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. So I really look forward to see what we have to do.
Oh yeah. Well, hold on. Let me kill the music. Let me actually put on something more appropriate for us working on some D&D stuff. Always a good thing to bust out some good old JRPG music in the background. Let me swap over to... This will be a fun one. We can have this on in the background for a bit. It's a question. How long did it take them to send you the PDF for the SMT RPG? It's funny because I still didn't get mine yet. I actually got mine from Kyle. Go figure. I'll be honest. It's supposed to be sent from, like, I think TTRPG, or, like, what is it? Dungeon Drive-Thru? One of those, like, distributors that they send out the PDFs for a bunch of different books. But, who knows? Anyways, back on topic. Let me transition us over to our good old desktop view where we're going to be spending a lot of time. And I got a lot of questions, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So, let's transition here. I want to give you the proper introduction and sort of say, hey, welcome to Learning D&D. Been sitting here learning a bunch of 5e stuff. Last time we looked at, oddly enough, Curse of Strahd, which, again, I will iterate, not the best book if you're going to try to be a first-time DM. I looked at it because, well, I thought it'd be cool, to be honest. But I will say, we got quite a bit to talk about. And in this case, it was kind of interesting. We looked a little bit at the end of the last stream for this, where we were looking at how to build a D&D setting. We looked a bit in the DM Guidebook here. And I figured, you know what? There's no other better person that I know who I could bring along for this sort of discussion than the DM of the first campaign I was ever in. The guy who sort of, like, him and his boys got me into playing D&D to begin with. And figured, why not? See if he'd be down for it. So, as we probably should have said by now, welcome back.
Yes, another victim.
Look, what can I say? Okay, I know I've told this story quite a bit, but I do have to bring this up again. It is always really funny how my first TTRPG experience wasn't with D&D. It was with, like, a Warhammer 40k campaign ran by, like, one of our friends. And I think it survived 2 sessions. It was,
Yeah,
it was Dark Heresy, I think. And we literally ran it for, like, 2 sessions, and then after that it just kind of, you know, exploded. Like, how a lot of wonderful campaigns just happen to do occasionally. So,
yeah.
I gotta say, you know, thanks for popping in, because if anything, it's probably you who knows a lot more about this than I, even though I've kind of learned how to DM from playing with you guys.
No, well, I mean, goodness, you talked me up quite a bit, but truth be told, I don't know. It's just something I've been doing on and off, you know, either being a DM or, you know, being a part of someone else's campaign for, goodness, how long has it been? I think around a little over 10 years, with me and, you know, my circle of friends.
I want you to know the music transitions into, like, this big, like, sweeping thing as you Perfect timing.
But also, I hate to be that guy, but with how you things currently with how things are set up for me on my end, all I see is the what do we need for a campaign setting thing, that box. Yeah. That's all I see.
Oh, I got you. Sorry, but we will go over that. Don't worry, I've got that, because we're gonna sort of do a little bit of a thought experiment, actually, before we even dig into the book, because of course the book sort of lists a bunch of stuff, but I kind of want to know from you, what do you think when you're building a setting? Like, what is it typically that you're looking for that's, like, you know, what do you think? I sort of have the philosophy where I start small and then we scale up. The book, it kind of starts a little bit overwhelming, where it kind of starts top down and goes, what is your world? Is it a known world, a lived-in world, a ruined world? And it starts talking about gods and pantheons and all that, and I'm like, in my opinion, I think that's a little bit too broad a scope to start with. I would rather start at more of a ground level, like, who are the people? Who are the inhabitants of the world? What type of setting is it? Like, you know, the smaller, more granular things, and then scale up from there. You know what I mean? So, what do you think?
Definitely. Goodness. Because if I had to speak from my experience, when I started playing D&D, and afterwards when I started my first D&D campaign, and the one after that, and even the one after that, I didn't even read the Dungeon Master's Guide for... And keep in mind, I was playing 3.5, so much older version. Although, surprisingly, a lot of the content in the older books, in terms of like world building and describing races and all that, they're honestly very similar to what's written in the 5e books, which is, you know, a very welcome surprise. But my point being is, yeah, I can relate to the whole, oh, they throw so much stuff at you in these books about how to build a world. It kind of gets stuck with, like, choice paralysis in a way.
It's really funny that you bring that up, because when I was sort of looking through the Curse of Strahd book, I was looking at it in the eyes of a DM to say, hey, if I was going to run this adventure, how would I run it? And it dawned on me more as I read it. Of course, this is designed for a more long-term campaign type of play, but it's funny because it made me realize, okay, adventure modules are a lot more complicated when you read them. Where it's like some of them, let me give you an example. Are you familiar with the old 3.5 book Sandstorm?
Yes.
So Sandstorm's more of like a resource book. It doesn't have a campaign or adventure within it, but it gives you rules and all these other things on how you could run a campaign within a desert environment, and then like a whole bunch of other, you know, parameters on how to do that type of campaign. So it's interesting because when I looked at Curse of Strahd, I was expecting it to be something like that, where it's, here's the sandbox, here's the loose story of how it should go, up to you how you do it. There is sort of that, but there's a lot more of the nuts and bolts, where there's like, I think a good example would be like the first town that you're in. You can start the campaign with either the players coming in on a road in the middle of the fog, or you could have them play Death House. Then from Death House, you can transition that into a full Curse of Strahd campaign, because technically the house would be there, and you could have that sort of be the entrance point for the players, and then them starting to branch out into, you know, Barovia at large. But
right,
what was more interesting was the little notes that are left within the pages regarding each NPC. There's a lot of detail regarding like different characters, different little bits of the scenery and setting, saying, what if the player does this? Now, I think that's interesting and it is helpful, but it does lead to a lot of very funny discussion that I noticed, where on almost like every major NPC that I saw, there was at least a single line of text that says, if the players attack, this is how they react. And you could tell that whoever wrote the line was very like, okay, you know what I mean? Because I was like, even I noticed, and I'm like, okay, this is a little bit ridiculous, don't you agree? Where I'm like, not every character should be attacked. Like, understandably, this is D&D. It's not a game. It's not Skyrim, where it's not like, oh, I fall to my knees, I get back up. No, I get that part. But you know what I mean, though, right? And it just kind of gets a little bit redundant when you see that on, like, every NPC. The adventure itself is a fun one, although I think it's, isn't it like a retelling of Castle Ravenloft, the old 3.5 version? But regardless, it's still a fun read. It's a fun book, and you get to see sort of, there's a list of different ways you can pan it out. Even with Death House, which is the small module that they have for that, which is basically a one-shot, very quick and easy. You could do that with some friends. And then it even says, this is for low-level players. Use it to get them to level 3, so when they enter Barovia, they can be at a playable level. And even with that, it has multiple endings depending on what your players do. And I do like that that is an option, and that is something that, you know, they account for. That maybe some groups are a little bit bloodthirsty. Maybe some groups run away. Maybe some groups solve the murder incorrectly, or, you know, do a puzzle and get a different outcome. So I can at least give credit where credit's due for the adventure book. Would I recommend Curse of Strahd to someone who's new? No. I would recommend Death House. Take that section, use that. It's a good beginner section because it teaches you about how to use skill checks in your campaign. It teaches you about lightly railroading the players, and I mean lightly in the nicest way, because there's literally killer fog that if you don't go into the house, it will kill you. But you get the point I'm getting at. It's to sort of make it so you and your friends can have this adventure, teaches you how to DM, and it gets the point done. In regards to when we looked back at the DM's guide, creating a setting is a lot more elaborate, but it can be fun for a simple adventure too. Let me see. Me personally, I'm the opposite. Understanding starting small is the smarter way about going about it, but it would bore you, so you start building a world in Pantheon. That's also an interesting thing. That's probably why the DM's guide recommends starting from top down, because it sort of lets you set the standards for that world, in a sense. You know what I mean? I've rambled for a bit. I hope that made some sense. I know, there was a lot.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, but the point I wanted to come across is all that good information, all those nice details, way to look at things, you know, if I need more specifics, that's all in the book. That will always be there. You can reference it, you can look back, you can take bits and pieces. That's fine. Right? And in a way, I feel like that can be a very good way to approach, like, building a campaign setting, you know, because that, I mean, if nothing else, that's how I started, right?
Yeah,
I started off with, like, oh, you know, I'm going to start with this, you know, big dungeon, and then, you know, they're going to go through it and all that. And it's now ended with, or, you know, like, goodness, one of my favorite campaigns was starting off with, oh my goodness, creating like a magical high school academy, you know, that sort of thing.
Look, it's okay. And I've talked about that campaign to like no end, and I do have to say hats off, because it is a fun campaign.
Yeah, thank you for that. But you know, I start with, you know, a simple concept, and it inevitably ends with me creating an entire continent full of nations and trying to figure out agriculture and economics. And can I just briefly say that if you really want to go down a rabbit hole of like really getting the specifics down of like a certain like place, like there are endless resources for that.
Oh yeah.
Even beyond like what's officially published. Because believe me, I've sorted through a lot of PDFs on the subjects of just like medieval agricultural economy.
Yeah.
And I've concluded that I don't want to do that.
Look, I am with you there 100%. Also, hey, what's up, Leaf? No problem. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you there, because I think the best example that I gave was I actually talked about, you remember when I ran the desert campaign for its first sort of session that we did, right? I think I talked about this briefly before we ran that campaign, but the one major point that I needed to stress out was the rules as written, the whole desert is technically difficult terrain. My original plan for that campaign was, well, you guys are going to be in a cart that's specialized to sort of get through the terrain, and if you did need to walk on the sand, they were going to provide you guys with special, I was going to say like almost like racket shoes, like you'd think like the snowshoes of like people hiking on mountains. They were going to provide you with an equivalent of that. But then at that point I'm like, just don't make it difficult terrain, then this is just roundabout, you know what I mean? There's the little things like that.
Yeah, and a lot of that gets into logistics of like how realistic do we want this fantasy setting to be? You know, as funny as that sounds, because it's like, how much do you want? You know, like managing like a food supply to, you know, how much of a hassle do you want that to be? You know, managing, you know, traversing through different terrains. You know, finding, you know, safe places to camp. You know, weather. You know, harsh environments, you know, how much of a influence do you want that to be for, you know, your players? And at least for my friends, the people I DM for and, play campaigns with specifically, we are kind of just like, we don't really care too much about, like food, for example. Like I used to be pretty stingy on the whole, like, you need like X amount of, food to travel X amount of days. And it was just kind of a hassle. It's just like, okay, if you have a place that sells food and you have some disposable income, like, who really cares? In terms of the deserts specifically, I mean, that, of course, there's going to be some element of hassle because that's just the nature of the terrain, where you're at. It's just drawing lines of like, how much do you want this to affect your players? How much are they going to have to work around? Because it's like, if you get rid of all the restrictions, all the things they have to consider, then it's just like it's like any
another
other
woods. And that was sort of the issue that I was coming across, because in my case, I did want to implement these mechanics just to give it a little bit of that. You're in a specific dangerous environment. We want you guys to feel a little bit at odds. I want that man versus nature sort of type of feeling while you're traveling. But the issue I came across was kind of different, because the sandstorm mechanics for temperature were actually very brutal. They were very, very brutal. That's why, like, it was even to a point where I had to nerf it severely, because I think it was one of our players, he was in like full plate. He would have had heat stroke instantly, like within the first 2 hours, and he would have drank all of his water rations. And you know what I mean? It's like, even with that, I went light on the rations, but you know what I mean? It's like, it would have been such a hindrance, which sure, that would lead for more interesting gameplay. He would need to change his armor, maybe change his approach. But then why make that character for that setting? You know what I mean? That leads to like a whole other thing of, is this DM meddling? Is it too much? And that sort of leads to like, how much is too much? Where can I pull back on? And that's sort of why I was like, I'm just going to have it instead give levels of fatigue, and we'll go from there, because it starts with levels of fatigue, but it drastically jumps to you taking non-lethal damage very quickly. And that's not fun for everyone, okay? Let's just be upfront. That's just starting to get obnoxious. It's taxing you to say, okay, every 5 steps, you need to, technically, rules as written, check your rations, eat, drink, etc., or else you're just going to dehydrate and like shrivel up. I had to very much take liberties with that, because that's not fun, and that's the most important thing. One of the major things that I stressed out in previous like streams of us talking about D&D stuff is always, fun factor. At the end of the day, we're here to have fun with friends, or at least to tell an interesting story with your friends, or maybe just other people you play D&D with. The whole point is, don't be a dick. Even if you're the DM, and even if Gygax wants you to play that way, that's not the way you should play it. Remember, we're here to have a good time, and, enjoy it. Don't do anything stupid like that. So I sort of tried to like manage it by, I nerfed those mechanics, because that's just not fun. And in that setting, it didn't really work. It's in
I mean,
nice, good.
I mean, in terms of the way I see handling environmental factors is you should see how they can sort of enhance the story you want to tell, or the challenges you want to present them. Like, for example, the weather is, the temperature is hot all the time. So, people wearing full plate is, people don't really do that.
Of course.
If you fight, if you have to fight like, bandits, for example, like they're typically not going to be very armored.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially
and
in this
that might feed into, the combat mechanics, where it's like, conversely, that also means that, they might decide, those bandits, like, hey, if, everyone is lightly armored, I want to, rather than focus on more like accuracy, right, I want to deal like more damage. So even though, you have your player character trying to clunk around in like full plate armor, and, there will be it'll be, a big headache for him. If he goes through that trouble, he should be rewarded in a way. So when those bandits go up to him and they're in this full plate, they're just like, the fuck, this isn't fair.
Yeah.
I can't hit that. I'm fighting like other people who are like practically naked over here, and you have this knight in shining armor I gotta tussle with, that sort of thing. It's just a matter of trying to find ways to, make the story interesting rather than be an obstacle to those moments. Of course. With the whole logistics thing, it's like I don't want people to worry about like a steady supply of food if it means it delays them getting to the parts of the story that I actually want them to be. It's like I want them to get to, the dungeon, Now, of course, there might be, depending on how much effort I want to put into it or the players want to put into it, if they have to like take a detour to, like get food or, like get, a certain resource, like that can be interesting. But at the end of the day, if both sides are, the DM and the players aren't, really committed to that, then it's fine to kind of hand wave it in a way.
Yeah, like I think a good example of that would be like how many arrows do you have left in your quiver? You know what I mean? That's sort of the running gag where it's like, look, unless you've got special modified arrows or typing arrows, I'm okay with us hand waving a total like ammo count, unless depending on like what type of setting, how serious is the situation. Mostly because, let's try to make it fair and fun. And sure, you could say, oh, well, you constantly need to be buying arrows. I'm like, look, dude, am I really going to do this to you? Do you really want me to start taxing you literally? Which, by the way, the old D&D taxing was a thing, which is dumb. Let's see. Cruising. Your players actually just got teleported to a desert, and to cool off, they decided to help, to cool a player off, they decided to help them by blasting each other with water spells designed to push and knock people back. You know what? That's good. That's a creative way to deal with it. It ended up knocking the rogue out, and it made a scene, and it attracted a group of sandworms. See, like, there you go. That's another good creative example of using spells for, other purposes, and that's great. And we love that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Of course, there's always the meme of, I'm just going to create water and flood the desert. You can always do that, although I will get mad, and I will revoke your create water right. Oh, man. But no, I do really enjoy examples like that, because it's it's really like, oh, the DM presents a challenge and the players adapt, and at the end of the day, the D&D is just cooperative storytelling. The DM lays the groundwork and the players add on to it, and we just go back and forth. Yeah, pretty much, and that's sort of like the best way to get started. So I guess on that note, we should probably start talking about like let's do our little thought experiment here. So what do we really need in a setting? Like we've talked about starting on like the ground floor. So I guess we could say you know what? Heads or tails on this? What do you think? Should we start from top, which would be talking about when it comes to like a pantheon, should we include one, or should we start on the more ground level and work our way up? I've done it both ways. Let's start from the ground up. Okay. So in a looking sort of ground up, the one of the most important things, at least to me, is a hook. What do I want to throw at my players immediately? What would interest them right away? What would be most fun for me? So like this down. One example is, goodness, I don't know what inspired me at the time, but I had an idea of like, hey, what if I had like this, this dungeon that's just like a huge tower, and at the very top of it, one person gets granted, one wish, whatever they want. So the idea is, the players, they need to cooperate to get up to the top, but it's like how only one person gets what they want, so that's up to them to deal with it. So that's kind of like my
Tower
hope.
of
Like
God.
the thing
There
on,
you go.
the sort of thing, that I'm interested in, as a GM, that I want to throw at my players. Here's this dungeon, or here's this cool scenario, and then sort of from there you sort of build context. Where is this dungeon? Is it somewhere far away? Is it somewhere near a community? How well known is it? Is it very well known? Are people from all walks of life coming to this place, or is it something more obscure, or is it something that's been irrelevant, but then it started becoming a problem for, local communities. So they had to, I don't know, pitch together some sort of reward to hire people to deal with it. You start from an initial idea, something small, something that you're really interested in, and you just build on top of it. And if you're ever wondering, like, oh, what kind of community would, be like, let's say, for example, what sort of community, that has enough money and resources to try to hire adventurers, what would that look like? How big of a community would it be? Then you can, look back at, say, the 5e Dungeon Master's Guide and get more details on, like, fleshing out, more of the world. You build it piece by piece. You just take stuff that, and you don't have to use everything. You just look around, see what interests you, throw it in there, rinse and repeat until you have something that you're satisfied with.
And no, I totally agree with you on that, because for me, when I've created campaigns, it'd be I would I would go based off of my plot hook. What do I want to happen? And then I think of things like, who are the players involved within this hook? Who is the person that is gathering the adventurers? Or is there a common goal? And we I jotted these down on our notes here. But, these are just things that I think about when we're starting from ground up. And of course, we're going to do some fun stuff, and we're going to start creating a setting by actually using some of the tables where it's like, what type of kingdom is this? Like, we'll piecemeal a little settlement out or something, you know what I mean? But, going off of that, for me, when it comes to, like, creating a campaign setting, I'm with you there. I usually look at a plot hook. What do I want to happen? Is this campaign taking place in a previously established world of a campaign that we've already done? Or is it in something completely new? And if it is in something completely new, I'd say start small, maybe do a region. Regions are very easy to work with, for at least, saying, hey, here's the base camp where the players are going to typically use as, like, their starting point. What does it look like? Who's involved? Are there any other people outside of this? What are other locations that they might be interested in going to? Typical stuff. I read a lot of, like, I don't know, like manga, and reading a bunch of, like, fantasy stuff from, like, the Warcraft books and other things like that. And, you get an idea of, like, these different things, and hell, you look at, like, things like Lord of the Rings, even other setting books, etc. There's lots of different ways you can sort of get these ideas for, like, ideas of places that a player would want to go, or places that an adventurer would want to go. Like, why would they stop there? Maybe they're on a mission, maybe there's something else. And that's at least how I would describe the hook, and sort of like, what gets people going where? What's the reason? Why is this campaign happening? And that's step one. Now that you've got that, I think it's time for us to start cracking in to the book, and I guess starting to look, and we could talk a little bit as we sort of go through it. And I think the book looks at it from more of a top-down perspective, but we could talk about it while we go through, and it can be pretty simple. Sound good with you?
Yeah.
All right. Let me just do this for you, so you and I are on the same page here.
Yep.
Don't mind me. Here you go. There we go. Okay, cool. All right. So we're starting from the top here, and let's see. Pull up our table of contents real quick. Let's see. So typically how it goes is it goes from, like, big picture, and then we work our way down. So it's more or less talking about okay, this is actually kind of an interesting thing it brings up within, like, the core assumptions of your world. Are there gods that oversee the world? Is the world a wild world? Is it an ancient one? Is it something that conflict shapes the world history? So, like, think like kingdoms and empires having political clashes and stuff like that. Or is the world magical? Like, is it kind of like a fae world, or, stuff like that? These are interesting things to note. Now, I would say if you're a DM and you're creating your own setting from scratch, these are some things that you might want to keep in mind. Like, what are the rules of your world? And I guess that's sort of like the over-encompassing question. Now, again, I'm not someone that is going to tell you how to run your campaign, and I will say that's up to you to figure out. But if you're starting small, it's always okay to just be like, oh, maybe you can go based off of something you're familiar with, or hell, even the book recommends, hey, if you can't figure this out, you could use locations or places from other D&D books, or you can use them as examples, like certain places, maybe there's a singular god that overwatches the area, or maybe it's, you know, a wild region. You know, there's a tons of different things you can do here. Then the other questions, which are also very interesting. Yeah, like Zelda lore, exactly, stuff like that. See? Also, hey, what's up, Micro? But yeah, you know what I mean? You have things like that. You also have other things like high fantasy versus low fantasy, I guess you could say. It more or less is like, you know, how magical is your world? And that's also another interesting thing you could say, you know? It gives some examples like, is this a mundane world? Is this a magical world? Like, you know, what's the scale of magic on that? Also, are monsters a thing that happens? Are they around the world, or are they a new thing? You know what I mean? And again, up to you completely how you want to do it.
Yeah, I am guilty of constantly putting worlds and settings in, like, shall we say, poverty mode, where the adventurers gain like very little money and magic items, and everyone at this point in my friend group is just kind of sick of it. They're like, no, we want to be showered in riches now at this point, you know? And I'm like, yeah, but you know, I don't enjoy. Yeah, it's just funny.
Look, it's funny that you bring that up, because that was like a whole discussion we had last time where it was like balance and all that, and I'm like, I guess that's like something we as DMs are going to talk over the board on this. And it's funny because when it comes to balance, you do end up in situations like that where you're like, well, the players become extravagantly wealthy. There's usually some sort of out they can buy themselves out of, but that's okay. You shouldn't deny that. Or you can cleverly deny that in the nicest way. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't be malicious. But I'm just saying, you could say, oh, the store doesn't have that. But if you make a certain check with them, they could start going to look for that item, and then they might have it later. You know what I mean? There's other smarter ways around it, you know? Things like that. Yeah. You can work around the balance of that, where it's like the players can have their cake and eat it, but me as the DM, I'm the one who's in charge of the oven, so when they get that cake is my decision. You know what I mean? You know, stuff like that. You can feel totally okay with cheat a little bit on that, because you're the DM, you're allowed to cheat. It's even in the book, you're allowed to do it. So go figure. What else do we got here? The other thing that it talks about, like creating gods and having a pantheon. See, or they investigated for tax fraud on all the treasure they never declared. Oh no, not the tax fraud arc in the campaign. Oh man. But now this is another interesting thing, and I guess this is my question for you, because I personally haven't ever really done this. I know a lot of people have done it. I know like Prusnik in chat has brought it up before, where they've created a pantheon of gods in their own campaign. In my campaigns, I typically just stick to kind of the general ones. I stick to mostly the D&D deities, and since I've been playing a bunch of Pathfinder, I'm like, I just toss those into. It's like whatever you want, really. I'm kind of okay with both, because I at least know what those are. And the other thing in that sense is like, the villain always ends up being capitalism. Shh, don't worry about that. But you see what I mean, where it's like a lot of the pantheons and stuff, like you can use things like, what is it, like, oh my goodness, Vikings, Norse mythology. Wow, that took me a second. Or like, you know, the other pantheons, you know what I mean? You can use those as like the basis of gods for your world, and then you could just sort of rename them. I mean, the Romans did it, so it's okay. You can rename the Greek gods. But you sort of see what I mean, right? Where it's like, for me, it's always been, I'm okay with just using existing deities that are in books, because that's what I'm familiar with. I know that. But I'm sure other people have a lot better sense in creating like gods for their campaigns. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, me personally, it's not something really high in my list of priorities, like establishing like a line of, you know, gods for people to acknowledge or worship, or, you know, like, you know, hold higher power. Mm-hmm. But it's Yeah, I like me personally, I also tend to use what's been pre-established, but that's just not where my interests lie personally. I use them more as like a supplemental tool to add more depth and context to the campaign I'm trying to build. So like for example, where do all the sick and ill go to get healing? Then it's like, well, I need to look up some gods that clerics and churches might worship in this community, and you start seeing some of their quirks and try to integrate them into your campaign. Like one of the gods that I took a liking to, I can't pronounce their name. It was like Farligan or something, but they were more of a god of like travel. So a lot of their disciples and people who worship them, they were just like wandering, missionaries. They go through the lands, give their blessings and all that. It was very interesting to sort of incorporate that into my world, and to be like, these are what clerics look like, in this society, for example. And it just added a lot more, depth and, shall we say, quirks to something that I had no ideas for in the first place. So it's just like, oh, I'll throw them in there. Yeah. See how they interact with, the players and the other NPCs I have. But if you're someone who's, very much more, into, creating gods and pantheons, then I'm sure you can have a lot of fun with that, where you start with like, here are the ruling gods of, this world, and these are the sorts of people that are attracted to, their teachings or the powers that they bestow upon them. And here's the societies that are crafted as a result of, these teachings and these powers, and how they sort of like interact and mingle with one another in this world. Like that would be really fun and interesting. That's just typically not the approach that I go for, but maybe one day.
Yeah, and I'm totally with you there on that, because I will say, in the nicest way, I'm not an author. I'm not a writer. As fun as it is for me to create a setting, I like to think more on like the more local and immediate when it comes to creating the setting. Sure, maybe there could be people who worship a god. I may not know what type of god that is until like we actually get to the question of what are they believing in. All right, give me a religion check. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know. And that's okay, because you don't have to know either. You can figure this out as you go along, because things change along the way. You know what I mean? Yeah. It all depends on the type of game you're running. Exactly. And Loth, best goddess. Hey, look, I know a couple of guys who agree with you there. But
now, me personally, I am. I love creating like, nations and kingdoms and geography.
Yeah,
geography especially. I love obsessing over geography, and like, all right, if someone had to live here, what would their society look like? What would they value? What would they need? What would they have an excess of? Things like that.
Yep. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that, because for me, it's more interesting. I like creating those types of settings because it helps me sort of create that headcanon of when I'm writing the campaign of what is the history of this nation, how does it impact the day-to-day people, and then if someone who's not from here, say the adventuring party, goes to this setting, how are they going to react to you? You know what I mean? I think an interesting thing, tying it back to when we were reading Curse of Strahd last stream, the people of Barovia are very interesting, because they know everyone in Barovia. They've been trapped here forever. But the interesting thing is, whenever new travelers come into Barovia, they know you're new right away, because you are not Barovian. You don't look Barovian. You don't have the paleness, the moniker of just, not really being super like in the right headspace. It's just very interesting, because like, again, they built the setting, they have the characters, you know what I mean? It's stuff like that. So I totally get that.
Yeah, and I find little tidbits like that interesting, because they reflect like real concepts and ideas in like the real world. So that, for example, is like living in a small town. I know one of our friends, one of their biggest complaints living growing up in like a small town, tight knit community, is everyone recognized him. And sometimes he just want to be left alone, and people would come up to him, and as he's like going around shopping, they talk to him and all that. It was just it could be a headache to him. So when you talk about like everyone knows everyone in Barovia, it's like, well, yeah, that's like that sort of thing happens in real life. It's just we've changed the context.
Exactly.
They're not there because they don't know everyone necessarily, because it's like, oh, we're a tight-knit community, we really know each other well. It's just like, we know each other because we're stuck here. Get me out of here.
Pretty much. More or less, yeah. Let's see. You love messing with one of your players, clerics, for the god they follow strength. Let's see. Oh, okay. Bunch of dude bros who talk about strength in more of a philosophical sense and working out. Dude, he literally hit the gym. He found his people. All right.
Well, so if our god is has unlimited power, but if he could make an immovable object that they couldn't move, would that mean that they have unlimited power? Because if they didn't have unlimited power, then they wouldn't be able to make that immovable object. But if they did make that immovable object, they wouldn't have unlimited power because they couldn't move it, dude? All right, let's do some squats.
All right, guys, we're doing this. We're hitting the rack. Okay, well, that is most of the section talking about the gods and sort of how you would set that in your setting. In our case, I guess, since we're starting from ground up, we just for simplicity's sake, we'll use whatever we've already got here, which is basically the source book material, which it's a lot of the more known D&D gods, stuff like that. We're okay with just using that as our base.
Lord. I see you everywhere.
Yeah, there it is. Oh man. Let's see. What else do we have here? Just talking about a bunch of different things. Animalism, other things. Forces and philosophies. Ah, yes. Let's see. And then I think this is talking about... Yeah, okay, so this is talking about settlements and then creating locales. Okay, so some of this actually, this is kind of interesting because you and I don't maybe necessarily think about this initially, but it does bring up some interesting things like scale and mapping, where it talks about hex spaces being maybe 60 miles. And this is funny because I think even in the Curse of Strahd book, when you look at the maps, there are map screens for the towns and then individual location maps that they've made. And the map screens for the towns actually include a scale of 5 foot, or 1 hex or 1 square on the map is the equivalent of a couple of feet to maybe a mile, you know what I mean? So it's very interesting seeing that. Yes, in this book in particular, they do talk about a lot of these things being in hex space, which is interesting. I'd assume for most traveling maps or provinces, apparently it looks like they use hex based, but for more battle maps and indoor enclosed areas, we do typically look at 5 foot squares.
Yeah,
interesting how it's noted here. Also, fun fact, there it goes. Each hex represents 6 miles. A map on this that would cover is Great Britain, or half the size of California, is most of them.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I have been getting more into map making, creating geography, and I have actually had to consider some of these things. So if I, for example, right now I'm trying to make a sort of islands, a big old island where it's just all right, I want players to be able to travel from one end of the island to the other, and that'll take about a month, right. So I have to lay out specifically all right, how many miles does that? Well, in 3.5, if you're traveling on foot, that's 24 miles. If you have a wagon and horse on, actually nice roads, and that goes up to, I believe, 48. So, and yes, you can really get into the nitty gritty of that. Quite literally, when I was making this island, I was I want it to be slightly bigger than Florida. So
Yeah.
I gotta look up, like what Florida is. I have to like look at it to scale, like how many miles, wide is that? And I'm like, okay, well, I need to extend it a little bit more so that, it takes them, roughly a month to get from one end to the other. And it's just, it's just to me, it's just funny.
It's funny because I never really thought too much about that. Like, I know when I wrote or was working on the desert campaign, which don't you worry, that's coming back one day. I've actually was going back and looking over the region map I made for it, and I made it more of like an artistic depiction, where it's definitely not to scale, but to just sort of make sure that POIs are on the map and making sure that there's at least enough distance between it, and making sure, I think if anything, I might need to make the settlements on that map a little bigger, just for emphasis on the importance, like what is the jewel of the desert, which is like the big city where everyone's going to go, or all of the religious leaders are, as well as all the government leaders. But it's also an entertainment city and a trade hub for the whole region. You know what I mean? And then like all the other sort of things, like I think in that campaign it was more about like people trying to harvest meteorites in the desert. So it's about like, where are all these different things? What's the story behind it? And just making sure that the traveling feels like traveling. And there's a whole bunch of stuff we could talk about that.
Yeah. And it's like, to sort of bring it back more generally, you can go into so much detail on that, or you can choose not to. You should. Generally, it would be nice to have like a rough idea of like how long is it going to take for the players to get from point A to point B. But having that rough idea is fine. That's all you really like need, if you even need that. Maybe sessions just take place. These sessions take place in this location, and then once we're done with here, the next session just picks up in the next location. Some time skip stuff. So like, you can put as much detail or as little detail as you want. It's just how much of it doesn't interest you.
Yeah, no, and it's funny that you bring that up, because I think the best way I could sort of break down Chris Estrad when I was looking through it is it's funny because the DM guide recommends this, and I talked about this and I definitely recommended this, is to write your stuff as if it's episodic, and seeing how the Curse of Strahd book is played out. There's a couple of different ways you can enter Barovia and different starting points you can put the players at, but what is definitely recommended, especially seeing sort of how the campaign is scaled, is you start in the east and you snake your way around the map, and as you do that, you do basically each major section or location would be maybe a session or two, and that wraps up that little arc in that area. And then from there on, it's like, I would say if you guys need to go back, unless it's like something major, if it's something small, you can just do it like, we'll off the cuff talk about it. We don't need to go into the maps on that unless it's like, big important. But that sort of like episodic traveling, making sure like what locations in particular are we using, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely with you there. Make sure the note that I sort of wrote down here is scale. Scale's important. As you mentioned, how big should your world be? Like you talked about it, where you need the region to be as big as Florida. Or in my case, where it's like, I think I'll use the example from my first campaign, it was just a singular kingdom. Or, well, in that case, it was the Empire. But, you know what I mean? It was a singular location where the party's going to mostly do their stuff. Now, in hindsight, I'll be honest, if I were to redo that campaign from scratch now, I feel like I would have a lot more understanding of how I would do that campaign, as well as like how to incorporate the scale, because what it originally was just the different districts of the kingdom, but then there was also the sewers, which in turn could be its own thing, which, maybe one day I'll do that. But you see what I mean? It's all about, it doesn't need to be as big as Florida, but it can also be a small, compact location that has different parts too.
Yeah.
Let's see, new content you plan on building for your current campaign. Let's see, shape of a compass rose. It's going to be Japan installed, where yokai on a mountain at each point. Ooh, that's cool. I like that. And each having their own night parade. I like that. I think that's a really fun idea. And it's like stuff like that you can also just do things like that. Like you can create a whole location or setting or locale, whatever you want to do, based on just even a simple idea like that. What would be a cool idea? You can run something like that. You can give it a theme. I think that's actually a note. Give the location a theme, because not all locations are going to be built equally. As someone that I've read a bunch of like Warcraft stuff and obviously messed around a bit in Classic WoW, I can tell you not every settlement's built equally. A lot of them are just, these are the farms. Yep, they're right over there. You see, the trees are different colored here. They're spooky here. That's basically the gist of it sometimes. But you know what I mean? It's all about how you play it out, because sure, maybe the trees are spooky and it's in a dark location, but what does that village have to deal with? They have to deal with the witch's curse, or some alchemist who's gone crazy and stitches together an abomination and it attacks the town at night. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So it's like, how do you take these simple locales and create something new? So sure, maybe the locale isn't anything too special, but that doesn't mean the story that's special can't happen there. And speaking of settlements, here's sort of our next kind of thing. This is okay. I like this little detail. Like, they bring up a good couple of questions here, and these are very good questions to ask when you're building your locations. What is the purpose to serve in your game? Now, that is a DM specific question, where it's like, why are the players coming here? Is this area just for show, or is it going to serve like a purpose? Like I sort of mentioned before, you can have a location that's like a hub for the players. This could be sort of their base camp. Maybe it's their favorite tavern, or, you know, a place where they have a resting house or something, you know what I mean? That could be sort of their base camp, a friendly locale for them to use. Or, you know, it could be other things. Hey, what's up, Leaf? Welcome back. So I do like that. The questions that they ask here are good for you as a GM to sort of determine how do you want to map out the location. Now, I will say, speaking about mapping, and I know you and I, we just were talking about it, but you kind of get the gist of it. I am going to say, if you don't know where to look for maps, Reddit is a good resource. I know, Reddit, the meme, haha, but, you know, it's actually not bad when you're looking for D&D stuff, because there's typically a lot of people who are looking for the same things, whether it be a simple dungeon map, maybe it's a settlement. A lot of them, they usually have good examples up there, and they're usually free. Then basically say, here, take a look at my map. Feel free to use it, and it's all about sharing. That's basically how it is when it comes to a lot of like D&D stuff, because at the end of the day, it's like, you know, you're mostly doing it for fun, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. That, and sometimes you'll see a map that'll give you a cool idea, and maybe you want to make your own map, and then that leads to stuff like Incarnate or like Dungeon Draft, which are other programs you could use to like design a map. Or let's say maybe you can't be fancy, that's not your thing. I'm gonna tell you, you could even use MS Paint. Like, you could even pull up a grid, draw some lines, and call it a dungeon, and we could talk about it. And that's okay, you know? Some stuff like that. How do you feel about players outgrowing their first hub? You know what? Actually, I'm gonna bounce that to you. How do you feel about that, Joe?
Outgrowing their first hub. Goodness, typically I don't really see it as that. At least the way I run campaigns is, well, I guess one of two things. Either A, they're traveling from location to location to location to where there's no like given, you know, there's no like, you know, home sweet home sort of feeling. It's just like, you know, we're going from one adventure to the next. The other one, I guess, would technically be that sort of like magical, like, you know, high school academy campaign I ran, where it's like they can't exactly escape the hub. You know, it's the academy; they got to be there. But you know, I can't let it be a static location. You know, it evolves, it grows with them. You know, they get access to more and more resources within that location. You know, if they do certain things contribute to the hub, you know, they can sort of grow it, build it up, you know, build, you know, a bigger community. So I guess like outgrowing the hub. I mean, I guess if I were to start smaller, be like, hey, you know, this is my campaign, you know, this is the starting town, you know, you'll get, you know, your first few jobs here, and then like, you know, it's things are going nice, you know, everyone is honky-dory together, you know, everyone's having a good time, and then they finally want to be like, hey, this is nice, but we're kind of outgrowing, you know, the sort of jobs here, you know, like we want, you know, more bigger challenges, you know, more wealth, you know, let's move on. That's always gonna be like, that's always gonna like pull at your heartstrings, especially if people are really enjoying the campaign and
Mm-hmm.
they've come to associate that location with like, finally back from the madness. But it's also exciting for me because it's like, great, now I can like do something else,
Yeah,
like
no,
as the
I
players
completely
move
get
on,
that.
I can move on as well as the GM.
Yeah, no, and I completely get that. Like, I guess now I'm going to use an example from a campaign that I was a player of in your campaign. Would be, I want to say, the first FFD20 campaign we ran with our Adventurers Guild. Ultimately,
yes.
the idea was for us to sort of expand and sort of become the Adventurers Guild of that land. And I think that's a very interesting point because you're right. That would be eventually over time if that campaign were to still be like ongoing and building up as we kept going. Yeah, that would definitely be the way to go. We would start small and then eventually maybe upgrade, get a bigger building, move on out of our starting town where we were at and move the guild to a bigger place. But you know what I mean? I definitely feel that, especially as like a GM or DM, because even in my first campaign, the idea was you guys were basically using that inn as a sort of like base camp, but ultimately you guys could have moved up into something else down the road depending on how you guys went. Like I think I briefly showed you guys the sort of the I guess like the rebels base in the sewers, and that map could have ended up becoming your new hub, and you would have had a lot more manpower back there, as well as like a whole forge that you guys could have used as another source of gaining either income or other items like that. So yeah, it's interesting because you have these little details that you may or may not account for, because it also just depends on is the campaign still running, or if it isn't, what decisions the players made, because that also influences, are they actually going to be going to this new locale, or are they going to be going somewhere else,
Wait a minute.
Oh, uh-oh.
RPG Maker A's VX is free on Steam right now.
Oh, yo,
I'm
go
sorry,
for it.
I gotta go.
Nope. Yeah, I know. I saw that. I had to laugh because I was like, oh, wait. I think I own this. Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. But, yeah, that's sort of my take on the players having their own, like, hub and then sort of building up off of that. And I guess in that regard, you could even, let's tie it back to there you go, home base. A settlement where the adventurers get a place to live, train, recuperate between adventures. An entire campaign can center on this location. Or it could be sort of the launch pad. And that's sort of how I like to look at it too now. Oh, nice, you got those two? Sick. That's awesome, Crew Snake. But, yeah, like, I think typically it's a good idea to give your settlement, or give the players at least a base camp to start. Now, granted, they may not stay there, and that's okay. Or maybe it's a traveling campaign. And I feel like I'm kind of in my traveling campaign arc with how I'm sort of building these things up, where I like to give players at least a temporary base, where, for example, in the last D20 campaign, or Final Fantasy D20 campaign I ran, in that region you guys were exploring, there was at least a central settlement in the middle of the region that you guys were able to sort of rest at, and that was sort of your hub for getting information from some of the locals. You know what I mean? So I'm okay with that, that being like a temporary base. But then when you guys went back into the dungeon, it's more of a checkpoint thing. You know what I mean? That's at least the structure that I was kind of going for. I hope that kind of made some sense.
Right. There was a campaign idea I had rolling around in my head where basically there were dungeons all over this this continent, and each one would sort of reflect the nation that they're in, the sort of people, the cultures, the idea. But even though they're all traveling around, I'm like, well, I need to give them something to sort of anchor them. So screw it, give them an airship. That would be their home base. It moves around with them.
Yeah, and I think that could be like a really fun idea. It's a lot of these ideas that are usually pretty good. Like, I think if you're a new DM and you're building a setting, it's a good idea to sort of give them a home base. So I'm going to write that down on our list. Give a home base to the players. Because it's good, because that also ends up being like sort of your central location where, sure, let's say your adventurers, they start small time. They're not always going to stay small time, you know what I mean? The more adventures they go on, the more things that they sort of, well, deal with, you know what I mean? You're going to have a lot more interesting things come up where maybe they're becoming known, they've got notoriety, and someone is looking for them specifically, and they show up, they're like, maybe it's a wounded soldier who's requesting the aid of the brave adventurers to say, hey, we're under attack, we need your help right now, please come and help us. You know what I mean? There's other things like that you can use as a hook. Maybe a rival adventurers guild has decided to declare war onto you, or you know what I mean, to try and like set up this rivalry, and they've come knocking at your door to say, we challenge you, and then, you know, something like that. So I think it's a good idea. Okay. Now, this is an interesting thing. Atmosphere. This would be like atmosphere for your setting or location. But do you want to talk like atmosphere versus tone? Because I know you and I have talked about this before, but it's always very difficult because I know, I think this came up at least once, it has to, in these past sessions, or past sessions, past D&D streams where I've talked about creating setting, or at least like even when we were talking about Curse of Strahd, like the tone and setting of that is very dire and dreary. And one thing I actually have to mention to you that I read in the book that I think you will absolutely love and totally steal this. Since Curse of Strahd takes place in Barovia and it's in the domain of death, which is Strahd's domain, anytime you use specific spells or anything, well, first off, you can't teleport because you are trapped. You can't use banishments because you are trapped in the domain. And it even says if the player does do these things, afflict them with these possible things, and it's more or less some sort of effect where the magic backfires and it horrifies the player. And even other spells like Alter Self or Mirror Image may be modified where the mirror images look like a decayed version of themselves, or like things like that. Those little details. And that's like the chef's kiss, and I love that. But again, that's the atmosphere and the setting the tone, where you have all these different things sort of coming up. Now, you don't need everything to be doom and gloom. You can have it colorful, joyous adventure. Now, I have another campaign idea to pitch to you, and I have two actually, that I've sort of had in the backlog that one day maybe will play out, whether it be in an on-stream campaign or off-stream campaign. One of them is very funny, and it is the idea of now this is more of a sandbox type of campaign, of the players being a band of bards, and your goal is to just become celebrities, and you would have to sort of plan out your trips around to different settlements and just try to make as much of buzz. And then like the idea is to have like a battle of the bands thing where there's going to be other groups of performers that are going to try to like, you know, fight you for the control of the stage and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So it's really goofy and outrageous, but you know, something fun I was thinking of. Another idea that I had sort of kicking around in the backlog was, and I mentioned it on stream before, so it's a little silly, but something almost like Ace Attorney like, where the combat it would be sort of another like academic type campaign, but where some of the combat would actually end up being more debate orientated. So I think the funniest thing I could equate it to is I don't know if you know Phoenix Wright, or have you played the spin-offs, but I know there's a thing called like, what is it, like psychic chess or like thought chess or something like that, where it's basically like the D&D battlefield grid, but instead your attacks would be scaling with charisma, and then it would be based off of that, where the idea is you're having an argument, but you're basically having a combat encounter. But you know what I mean? You see where I'm going with this, right? So it's like you're having a combat encounter for gameplay wise, but in actuality, it's just a heated debate. And while you're doing that, like making your attacks, and say you score a critical hit, you get to sort of exclaim something dramatic at the opponent. You know what I mean? Something fun like that, where it could be like the most ridiculous like campaign, and it could be about like scholars trying to win control over an archive or something. You know what I mean? So it's like these little like fun ideas that I've got kicking about in the backlog that maybe we'll see in one campaign or not. But you know, it's these little things that are like the most fun parts to me, where you get to sort of write these crazy ideas, and you're like, I don't think my players may even like that. Like, I know for a fact there's at least one player I know that would be completely bored to tears. But then I know others might have a lot of fun with it, because then the idea of the whole campaign would be, before the big debate, you guys can go and do different actions, like maybe go visit a library to gain bonuses by studying up on certain things. Maybe you, I don't know, go to the pub and have some drinks with your friends and get like a +2 to charisma and a -3 strength. I don't know. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. But you see what I mean? These are the atmospheres that you're creating, where it's a little bit lighter, but you can still have that fun. Or versus, you know, the Curse of Strahd, where doom, gloom, and a man who's very upset. I don't know, long tangent, but I hope that made sense when we're talking about tone and atmosphere. Let's see. Now what else?
No, but I'm gonna pretend it did.
Oh, thanks. I mean, by all means, if you got anything else you want to weigh in on.
See, when it comes to those, when it comes to tone and atmosphere, it's in the context of D&D. A lot of that comes down to how you want to describe locations.
Okay.
Because at least with the way I run D&D, is, I'll admit, I am probably atypical in that I like actually creating maps using like map making software.
Oh, I do.
You know, or like getting stuff that's already been pre-made and dropping my players there, which sort of serves as to do a lot of the heavy lifting of like, you know, what's there, what does it look like, you know, what can you do, what can you interact with? Because I understand, like, typically D&D is a lot more verbal. It's a lot more, you know, like people, you know, break out the MS Paint a lot more, or they, you know, have, you know, any sort of like physical representation. You know, it's all narrative.
Yeah.
Which, in that sense, you know, the tone and atmosphere is kind of already done for you, because you already have to describe, you know, what things are, what they look like, what they smell like, you know.
Yeah.
And sort of give like a general vibe of like, you know, how does it feel to be here? And at least for me, I lose a lot. I lose track of tone and atmosphere, you know, using like these actual like made maps, because, you know, rather than like describing how things look or how things feel, I just sort of throw the map there and I'm like, yeah, there it is. Do what you will. And it's like, you know, you do lose something there.
Yeah.
You know? So, tone and atmosphere, I mean, a lot of that just comes down to, like, I create the setting, you know, and as the GM, why do I care about this place? You know?
Yeah.
I go, you know, I introduce a tavern to the players. What sort of feeling do I want to impart onto them? What, you know, what's the meaning? What's the point? You know, maybe it's a very impoverished town, so I want to describe the tavern as like, oh, you know, the floor, you know, the floorboards feel rough. You know, there's a musty smell that goes throughout. It's oddly cold, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if it's like, I want, you know, to give them like a place of like refuge, then it's like, oh, you know, it's warm, it's inviting.
Yeah.
You know, you get pleasant wafts of, you know, the meats and stews being cooked, you know, in the kitchen. You know, the first thing you see is like that nice glowing fireplace. You know, it gives purpose to these settings and these, you know, events, these set pieces in your campaign. That's really what tone and atmosphere like does for me. And in terms of like the difference between tone and atmosphere, I really don't care too much to differentiate. Like you can be like, oh well, tone is what the author is trying to communicate, or what the GM is trying to communicate, and the atmosphere is, you know, what the players take away from it. It's like I don't really care to differentiate that.
Yeah.
But my main point is, you know, it's one thing to set up you know, a place, you know, a setting, or even an event, and me as like the GM, as the creator, is like, oh yeah, no, this is totally how it looks, but like trying to communicate that with the players, that, you know, does take some efforts. It does take some like understanding of like, if I was in their shoes, you know, how would I feel about this place?
Yeah,
you know, what are their expectations? If I step into a tavern, for example, chances are they're looking for a place to rest.
Yeah, of course.
And it's like, I can either lean into that, or I can betray those expectations, you know, depending on what I'm trying to communicate here. You know, like, oh, is this place run down? You know, how does that reflect the state of, the village?
Yeah, because it just depends on a lot of different things too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Kruznik brought up a good point. Another major difference between like IRL play versus online play. It's kind of interesting because me personally, I've only played D&D online. I've never played it in person. I know, very, very shocking. But because for me, I got into D&D during the pandemic, and I got into it primarily when just a lot of my friends online were into D&D. I got into it because of you guys, and it was very interesting because since then, some of my IRL friends have been interested in it, but we really don't sit down to do it. They would prefer to even just play it online because it's more convenient for them. So it is very interesting because you're right. Ideas about like how detailed is the map? Okay, that kind of takes away some of the stuff that I have to explain, but also it just kind of depends. There's a lot of like the different details, like, oh, why is there that giant metal statue in the corner of the dungeon? You want to know the real answer? Real answer, it was there on the map, so I just was like, yep. Hey.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, even if it's something that's like purely verbal, IRL.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's still something you do have to like take into account. Because it's one thing to have an idea of a place in your head, and it's another thing entirely to actually try to communicate it and trying to get across, how I believe the player should feel about this place.
Of course.
And I don't really have any advice for that other than, experience, fail a whole bunch.
Oh yeah, trust me, read. I did too. yeah, read.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've even had situations where like I've had to call off a campaign because it kind of became too much for me. Because with my current experience,
a whole graveyard full of dead campaigns that either never started or ended after only like a few sessions. It is one of the great guilty things that I have hanging over me. Granted, I know someone who has it even worse, but let's not get into that. But it's I feel you. Sometimes things don't line up.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like, there's also that element of it too. It's okay if the campaign ends up being like too much for you to manage. That if you need a backup, that's all right. Sometimes simplifying is okay. Like, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, because like I talk about putting all these different details into creating your setting, but it doesn't really amount to anything if you never get the campaign running. Really, well, I mean, it means stuff to me because I'm still trying things, I'm still learning things.
Oh, of course.
But it's a lot more. My priority should be trying to make something that I can have other people play.
Yeah.
It's cool to work on things, but at the end of the day, you should really try to share it with other people in some way.
Oh yeah, and it's funny. Leaf brings up a good point. How many DMs have graveyards of dead campaigns? You got a few back there. Look, I'm guilty of it too. It's more like it's not exactly a graveyard. I've got at least one campaign I know I shot dead, but there is at least I wouldn't call it dead. It's on ice. It's in the morgue. It's not quite. Well, okay, it's not in the morgue. It's in ER, okay? That desert campaign will get off the foot, or it'll stand back up one day. Trust me, we'll get there. It's just something that needs a lot of work.
I mean, you don't got to make any promises to me, especially on recorded media. Just saying, but
look, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. At some point.
I'm a little.
Oh man. Anyways, I know, what a tangent. I guess to sort of tie back onto this is an interesting section. This talks about like what type of government would be for your settlement, your kingdom, your city, state, whatever it is that you want to do. Again, for me, typically depends on like the type of setting or campaign hook. I know, for example, in one of the past campaigns I've ran, which was called what is it, Haunting of Saw's Creek, the town itself is like a small like labor town that focused on like logging and lumbering, and the people who were in charge of that town were the people who were in charge of the logging company, and they also just happened to own an inn, or the daughter was married to the innkeeper and she was the one in charge of the whole company. So, you know, it just sort of turned into that like small town situation where this is a more localized campaign versus like the first campaign I ran, which involved a whole empire where there is a government and like a whole like line of authority. But you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Very different,
and,
very much depends.
Yeah. And like speaking more broadly here.
Yeah.
Because typically when I think about like, you know, a bigger settlement like a city, I don't necessarily think in terms of like, is it a democracy, is it a bureaucracy, you know, is it, you
like
know,
the whole,
are they more like, you know, is it a republic? I think more in terms of like, generally speaking, what are some beliefs that these people hold that get them, you know, through the day to day?
Oh yeah.
And as I start establishing those, that starts getting me an idea of like, well, okay, how would these sorts of people, you know, establish like, you know, like a ruling class or, you know, like a pecking order?
Yeah.
Even, you know, even if they have one, you know. So like, if people are more like open, if people are more like, you know, my wealth, you know, like my wealth is your wealth, you know, we trade favors all the time, you know, like helping people who are low, you know, like not doing so well, and, you know, sharing the wealth and all that, then the, you know, social standings, you know, like there won't, there will inevitably, I mean, let's be honest, there will inevitably be people who rise up to quote unquote, you know, rule and govern, but it's going to be a lot more loose. And on the other hand, it can also lead to, you know, some problems of like freeloaders and leeches and some sort of like growing distrust of like, you know, as a result of like, you know, I'll be nice to you if I know you. So, you know, they'll be, you know, they'll treat outsiders really poorly, you know, just sort of build up from there. That's typically the approach I take, where it's just like, what are some beliefs that this settlement has, and how does that reflect, you know, reflect a lot of different aspects, such as, you know, how they establish a pecking order, so to speak. Oh yeah. No, I completely agree. And which, by the way, gods really help with that. You know, if you have no idea, just pick a god, see what they believe in, and be like, hey, these people, they really like that. They really agree with that. They eat that shit up. No, and it's funny because even if we were to scroll back up to like the religion section and like the creating like the pantheon of gods, it even mentions things like cults, and you could even say like, doesn't even need to be called a cult. It could just be like, you know, the religious organization. I mean, I wouldn't even go that far, because like, you know, you don't need to be a fanatic for religion to believe in it. You know, it's more like a community thing. It can be, I guess I should say, it can be very casual for them. Oh yeah, of course. See, as for you really can't say dead campaigns you've ran. You technically have run 3 campaigns where the players just kind of switch in and out, and the main plot is still going from the first campaign. Okay, that's interesting. I guess it's funny. I guess that sort of correlates to like sort of how you and I have run campaigns, because it's funny. I have to thank you for this, because a lot of my campaigns, if not most of them, have been ran within the world or setting that you and our other friend created for the first campaign I was in. Yeah. You know, funnily enough, you know, that started with like a small little magical high school academy. Then I had to, you know, expand it to, you know, like a whole continent outside that to sort of give more, you know, depth and context to everything. And then, you know, one of our mutual friends like made a whole world map showing that. And then like you and me, we've been running some stuff, you know, using that same world. So and it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, I like that because it also fleshes out the world piece by piece.
and it gives room for like more things to sort of be added in periodically or later on, or just, you know, maybe, you know, a big shakeup happens or something crazy, you know what I mean? And it's good because it gives more lore to the world, and it gives more flavor to like the different regions, because there are some regions where I know we haven't touched lore wise other than maybe a character being from there, but it also helps because you're building up the background where when we do meet these characters, you think of the adventure we had in that location. What are these people like? You know, what are the different things that they believe in? How do they work? How do they operate? You know what I mean? And I think like the reason why it's you know, I'm dwelling on the desert campaign of it. I think the reason why I like that campaign as one that I'm looking forward to getting back to like really putting an effort in on is it has such a wide cast of different people, and the lore that you've sort of given me to work with as like a basis for that region is very interesting on its own, because you have like a whole bunch of different races coming together, and you know, who's like the central figurehead, how do each of these operate within the region, what are their things that they're interested in, why are they here, and that's the fun part, because it's like, you know, not everything has to be so united. They can just have like different operations going to different places, you know what I mean? So I think that's the best part about it. You can really, you know, do a lot in these types of things, and it gives more character overall to a setting like that. And granted,
I mean,
it doesn't need to be everything.
Sorry, one of the great things about like establishing, you know, a setting or establishing a canon, or, you know, putting them in this foundation, so to speak, is you can just pick up some pieces or details here and there and just run with it.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, I need another settlement in this region. Well, I already know, like, generally speaking, you know, like what resources they have available, what the you know, what sort of people live there, broadly speaking. So it's a lot easier to set it up rather than start completely from scratch.
Oh yeah, of course. And like, you know, just having that pre-establishment just helps out in general. I'm gonna be honest, that's one thing that is always good. And hell, that's the reason why even in the DM's guidebook here it recommends, hey, if you don't have something pre-established like that maybe you've worked out, or maybe you've worked out with your friends, totally okay to use a D&D setting where one that they push all the time is like Sword Coast in Forgotten Realms. I think even right here, it talks about like Eberron. If I like scroll up, Households of Eberron in the Eberron campaign setting, stuff like that. You're always more than welcome to use that as a basis. Hell, they encourage it. But you know what I mean? You can always look at those as like a point of reference, and as you can see, like even the list of this just like keeps on going. Like, for example, like what type of rule is a country under? It's like there's tons of stuff. It just keeps going. Which, you know, we can do some rolling, and we will do some rolling on some stuff to like build a location for fun in a little bit. But I'm just gonna write, you know, let's say city-state for later. We're gonna have some fun with that because there is a table here. So on that note, I guess, do you want to be the one to do a roll on this, or shall I? Because I do have, if I can pull it up on screen.
I think it'd be best if you did it.
Sure. We can do a roll here. This is going to be so scuffed because this little setting that we're piecing together here is going to be fairly random, but I think that'll be even funnier. So let me just set this, and I can just toggle this so you guys can see the little dice roll. Where is it? There it is. There we go. It's gonna be kind of small at the bottom here, but let's see. Your favorite gods you've created for in your pantheon: the twin spider goddess, or the red thread, and love. Oh, okay. That's really cool. That's such a cool idea. Yeah, it's like, you know what I mean? It's those types of things that it's fun because you can just like come up with a lot of stuff. God of poverty. Wow. Oh man. Oh no, I'm just thinking, was it the vow of poverty that you could take as a monk and everyone gets mad? Oh man. Okay, well, let me pull this up. We're gonna have our D100. Alright. Let's roll our D100. Let's see. What type of government will our city-state get? Any bets? Any guesses? Let's see.
Oh, I'm hoping for that kleptocracy.
I know, right? Let's see. That's so specific. It's just 95. Okay. And we got 27. Dictatorship.
Hey, let's go.
All right. So let me mark that down. Dictatorship. Okay. Amazing. That's going to be interesting. The supreme ruler. Absolute authority, but isn't necessarily a dynasty. Let's see. The Greyhawk campaign settings, half demon, then is a director of the conquered lands that bears his name. Oh, interesting.
Just real quick, can you scroll up to autocracy?
Sure. There you go. And give some examples.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Let me drink some water. Thank you for that reminder. Look, you gotta stay hydrated, especially when you're talking so much. Oh, man. Okay. Alright, so we got our our form of government. Great. Awesome. This is gonna go wonderful, and we can, like, piece together a little story later. Let's see. We got our currencies. Okay, so now this is kind of funny. I know we usually talk about, like, a lot of, like, currency. We typically, when we talk about, like, money in D&D, we typically talk about, like, gold, silver, and copper. I know Electrum exists. I don't think no, Electrum has come up, I want to say maybe once or twice in, like, the whole time I've played D&D with you, because I know specifically you brought it up, and then I think a certain Crystal Scorpion brought it up once. I don't think anyone has used platinum because we're all poor most of the time in our campaign.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry.
Hope no one uses. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, so, you know, typically. Oh, go ahead.
See, currency to me in D&D bothers me so much for so many different reasons. Because, like, me personally, I would love to nerd out.
Yeah.
And be like, you know, different, you know, like nations have like different currencies.
No, I think that
and
would
it's
be
a whole
fun.
It's a whole sort of like grab ass of like, you know, one nation trying to establish economic rule over everyone else, you know, make their currency, you know, the most popular, even though this one skimps out a little bit on their, you know, gold and their gold coins and all that, and different merchants, you know, valuing different currencies, you know, differently as a result of all that. But I've come to realize that most players do not want to engage in all that.
Yes.
They just want to slay monsters, pick up the treasure chest, get the gold, and then just spend the gold. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I understand that, you know, people, you know, like, people don't want to see currency as more than just money. You know, it makes me a little sad, but I understand, because it is a lot of logistics.
Oh, yes.
It is a lot of effort to put into like, even like, one thing that really did surprise me in terms of reading like the 5e books and like currency is like, they do add some, like, you know, nuance, you know, like, oh, this place has like this special currency that's worth, you know, more here, or, you know, maybe some people use like this instead of currency and it's worth a lot more in these areas as opposed to this. And I'm like, I think that's really cool. I don't think most people would see it as really cool.
Yeah.
And to actually play it can be kind of hit or miss.
No, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Like, first off, I gotta say, Kruznik, you're on the money, and I love that. Spice Wolf is great.
Oh, thank you for that.
And no, I agree with you in that sense, because, well, now this is sort of what I mentioned before, where I'm not a fantasy writer, and this is, I guess, DM gameplay purpose versus fantasy writing setting. In a fantasy setting and a full situation, I agree with you. Let's say maybe there's one coin that's king, but every nation has their own coin, and it's what is the equivalency for it. But as a gameplay purpose, no, I don't want to deal with that. I ain't messing with that shit. That's a lot of work, okay? But you know what I mean? It's like, I can't say I don't approve of it, because I do. Like, I actually really like the idea, and I think it's a fun world building situation. But at the same time, you're right. It can, you know, lead to like a lot of situations where it's like, it's just kind of a pain in the ass, because then you're gonna have one player who's like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. That's a lot of work, you know? So it's stuff like that. That to me, it's like, it's good, But at the same time, I can understand why they just keep it simple, stupid. You know what I mean? Sometimes that's
Right.
the best way to go. Bonus question: who mints all the gold in the setting? Oh no!
See, that's the
a
other
question.
thing.
That's a good question.
And that's the other thing that I wanted to mention that is specific to like these like, you know, like fantasy settings, these medieval fantasy settings, is like you go into a dungeon, you know, you slay the monster, you open the treasure chest, you get gold coins.
What if it's
What kind of gold coins?
Yeah,
are they minted? Are they unminted? Who the heck is making unminted gold
You're
coins?
right.
You have
I
to
didn't even
explain
think
all
about
that
that.
and integrate it into this whole system.
Oh no!
And then you come to the conclusion, you know what? They're all unminted. I don't care.
No, you know what it is? It's just you've got the magic touch, you've got the RuneScape alchemy spell, and you just high alch it, and it turns into your modern day equivalency. What's the MSRP of this gold rod that I found? Oh god.
I think ultimately a good way to handle this.
Oh no, hold
be-
on. I also see some of the things here too where it's like can be turned into bars or ingots or odd currencies where coins aren't enough. Gone bells.
Yeah, that's what I was reading specifically.
Yeah.
Earlier,
Mhm.
where it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I think a good way to handle it is, you know, and when it comes to like these sort of like nitty gritty details, things, logistics, and all that. I think a good way to handle these sorts of things is generally speaking, don't bother the players with it if they don't want to engage with it. Don't they don't have to. Don't punish them for that.
Yeah, there's no
But
reason.
if they want to dig into it, reward them for that.
Yeah.
You know, so like for example, they get these, gold coins, from the dungeon, and like, the barbarian or, whoever, whatever player isn't concerned with this stuff, they're just take it and go. And it's just like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, what if someone asks like, what do they look like? Oh, well, they have this like specific minting to them, and maybe they ask around and they'll be like, oh yeah, those ones specifically are getting more popular. You get a little bit, more, money out of that. You can reward them a bit there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course, then you might end up with the issue. It's just like, wait, no, I didn't know about that. Now I want to do that.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's funny. It's a delicate thing.
It's funny because I'm thinking back to now in your first FFD20 campaign we ran, when us as players, we came across a weapon that we found, and it was a sword that was made of like old coins and stuff like that.
Yes.
And it's like, it's interesting because it's like virtually worthless now because these coins have no value. That government's gone. You know what I mean? So it's interesting because it's like, that's an exact point that you brought up where it's like, what is the value of this? Probably zero, despite it being made of literal money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you find someone who's like, interested in that sort of stuff, then hey, make a trade.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. Let's see. What other? Oh, hey.
Yo, what up?
One second. Let me get you on screen here. Hold on.
I apologize for any noises you might hear. I'm unpacking a box of pretzels.
Oh yeah, no problem. Oh shit. Oh fuck,
Shit, dude, I dropped. Wait. Oh no, dude, I dropped my fucking. I shouldn't do that. The controller I use for fighting games.
Yeah, you probably don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It was like $40.
Full party now. I know, right? Welcome aboard.
If you complain about dropped inputs, it's your fault.
I'm literally dropping the input device. That's what's happening.
There you go. What's up? How you doing, Kombucha?
Hi. I'm struggling to stay alive, but I'm here.
Hey.
Sorry, it's difficult. I'm on kind of a nocturnal schedule, so that's why I'm so late.
Oh no, you're good. We were just going through like talking about building setting. We had a whole shebang. We got a whole list of stuff where we were just talking about like currency and sort of like, it's cool of an idea to have like different currencies in different places, but we can understand why we don't do it as a gameplay thing.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like unless you want to like make gameplay around it, it's better to just leave it abstract. It's like doing food. Like,
Yeah.
we even had to keep track of food since our like first campaign because it's assumed that unless like you're literally like in a desert or you got like all your stuff taken away, that like you have the diligence to keep yourself fed on an adventure.
Oh yeah, of course. And like, it's funny because we actually went through a lot of discussion on that. But yeah, it's stuff like that where it's like, it depends on the type of game you're playing. Like, say if we were doing a campaign, like say our setting that we've been cooking up here, say it was more focused around like hunter-gatherer, survival type, or maybe it's like we're making money by selling pelts or something, you know what I mean? Then those things matter, because now we're playing a completely different type. Exactly, see? You got it, cruising, unless you have like a monster hunter. There you go. And it's funny that you bring that up with cooking monsters, because I did something like that in my last campaign. Hell, my friend here, good old Joe, he was the chef of the party. So while they were exploring the dungeon, I was writing up recipes for him with him. And, you know, he was collecting monster parts as they were going through. And he was using, like, skill checks to cook food for the party. And that, in turn, gave benefits to the party back. You know what I mean? That's also just adding another layer of lore on top of that. Because now it's not just, this is a mechanical thing for the purpose of having it. You're also, I would basically give him the, what he cooked, the stats for it, anything else, and I said description and name are all up to you. This is just what I've got written down. Feel free to change it, make it as stylized as you think, you know.
Yeah, and you're rewarding the mechanic by turning it into something fun. It's kind of like a Chekhov's gun situation for like game mechanics. Like, there should be a purpose behind everything being there besides just busy work or because because I said so, right? Like, have it be something that's worth engaging with for your players.
Yeah, you should be able to make fun content out of it, not have it get in the way of the fun content.
Of course. And that's like the most important thing that you want, because that's why it's like, how realistic do you want your setting or campaign to be? Because it's good that you think about the lore question of what do they eat, where do they get it from, stuff like that, but doing it is not always fun gameplay. It's just tedious, and that's the thing we don't want. We don't want tedium, because if you're playing with people that may or may not know D&D, when half of the session is the combat encounter, or sitting down and maybe like teaching people how to do specific things, adding these extra layers of like non-combat actions or other things like that can be a lot on them, you know? So,
right,
stuff like that, you know, you have to just realize what's enough. Looking back into the book here, this is just talking about like factions and organizations. It's funny because I actually didn't know a lot about these organizations that are from I think these are what, Forgotten Realms? Yeah, like Sample Faction, the Harpers, all this stuff. I think the Harpers are like the typical Adventurers Guild. Are they? I don't
They're like a wizard group, sort of.
Because I personally don't know too much about Forgotten Realms. Unironically enough, I feel like
I've got most of my engagement with the Forgotten Realms lore from DDO, actually.
I was going to say, it's funny because I know from DDO, to me, I know more about the different houses in Eberron than I do actual factions. And,
there's an expansion that's like Faerû and Forgotten Realms. And in fact, if you scroll back up in the book, the 5 factions they had up there, so the Harpers, the Emerald Enclave, I believe were in that game. The other ones I don't remember seeing.
Okay. I see. Gotcha. Oh, it's good to know. Regards to like creating factions and organizations within your campaign, honestly, you could keep it as light as even as an adventure guild, or if you wanted to go like even further, you could have like different factions, maybe different houses of nobles, maybe I don't know. You can have like different organizations, like, you know, like how the Harpers are like the wizard spies, stuff like that. You can do a number of these different things, and it's really just up to you. I would say leave that to complexity of campaign, where if you're doing a simple, I send the boys out into the woods to go fight a bear, you don't really need a faction, okay? They are their own faction, the players, and then nature, or maybe it's bandits. And the bandits can just be generic. You don't have to give them their own factions unless you want to. Again, that just goes down to how granular do you want your world to be, and how deep of a discussion do you want to go into on that. And we don't have to go too deep into that. We can just keep it pretty surface.
Can I name drop somebody in here?
Oh, sure.
Like one of our friends.
By
Like,
all means.
you know, somebody who I think is like honestly like been knocking that out of the park lately in terms of like fleshing out his world building with like various like factions and organizations is John. Like
Yeah.
he's like insanely thorough. It has so much like concurrent lore running that sometimes isn't even really relevant to what the party's doing, but it just means that like if you start digging, like it'll always sort of be there. And actually a trick that he does that I've like appreciated is that like he'll kind of build as he goes. So like he'll get like something that he kind of is like, okay, there's a what was it? There's like a certain like organization or a certain group or whatever, and you might have like a vague idea of like the details of them. Like, sure, maybe you have like an MO for them or like what they do, but you don't have like individual members. You don't have where they're located. But like when players start pressing on you and start trying to get that information from you, then you can sort of like scaffold it out more. He did similar stuff with me because I've talked about how like I've got enough material on that custom race and the Far Realms campaign setting to basically do an entire game. And that's mostly because of him, because I made a character with a backstory from the Far Realms, and then he just like with like a custom like race that he's from, and he just started asking me question after question after question, and it forced me to be like, oh, I didn't think about that, and then I came up with an answer. I'm like, well, I didn't think about that either, and then like eventually like I built something that I'm like, I have a lot of fucking material here. But it was because like you give people like something to probe at, to dig at, you know.
No, and I'm with you there on that, because even in my experience that I've had talking with him, we've sort of created like a whole noble faction and sort of a whole separatist faction from the church in that campaign, where that's sort of my whole character's shtick in their backstory, and it sort of leads to like this whole organization and sort of this thing that we've set up on the side, which is just another like bit of lore in that campaign, another bit of other factions. And I do like that, you know, it's funny that you bring that up, the building as you go portion, and I think me and Joe here talked about this earlier, where that was a big like key component that we've talked about when it comes to building a campaign. You don't necessarily need to know everything, and actually I don't think we outright said it, but I'm going to tell you, and as someone that I've DM'd a couple campaigns, these guys have DM'd campaigns, I'm going to give you the biggest tip of your life. Don't plan everything out. And you're probably like, what do you mean don't plan everything out? Plan enough out. Leave gaps, leave open spaces, because again, the players may do something that'll surprise you. Sometimes things change, you know, direction. Sometimes maybe, you know, you have to write up something else. I think a good example was from the last session of the campaign that the three of us played over the weekend. We were sort of presented a decision on what mission did we want to do. And outside of character, we talked about it and said, we're all going to pick this mission. And I think jokingly you said, okay, so here's where we pick a different mission, Kamucha. You're like, this is where we're going to pick the other thing. And he just over the board comes and says, I mean, sure, we could do that if you want, but then this will be a really short session because I have to go prepare the other stuff. You see what I mean?
I want to say that was not me. I always respect his time.
Of course.
Always.
Of course. But, you know, just example. Other things. Okay, I guess this is like if you were doing this type of campaign, like I'm looking at the book here, within your factions, if you wanted to create like a reputation system, like renown, and get 5 renown per faction and then go up in ranks, I'm like, I typically just wouldn't do this way. I mean, I guess this would be more of like a downtime action thing, like for a long running campaign that you're doing. You could make like downtime actions. You work with different factions. Maybe over time, you build up your reputation, and that could be a side quest for you to go on. They have a specific order mission for you. Yeah, that's right. You who is listening, you know, go out and go beat up a bandit or something, and you get a title rank up. And I have to sit here because looking at this, it makes me laugh because I've got like Final Fantasy 14 music playing in the background here, and I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, man, is this how you're gonna go and rank up? You're never gonna be Storm Captain.
Yeah, it's all very gamified.
No, this is very gamey. I wouldn't recommend doing something like this.
I mean,
you can. I don't
think gamified's a bad thing.
No, it's not. It's just, for me, it's like, I don't know. This isn't bad. Like, if you want to make a very gamey campaign, it's a good idea. Good idea. Something you totally do. But you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. This.
What were you saying, Joe?
Oh, sorry.
I mean, I'm not necessarily against the idea, because like if you're gonna have factions and you're gonna flesh them out, you should they should like have some sort of impact to your players, or you know, and one of the ways is like, you know, the players, you know, want to you know, build up a reputation, you know, with them, you know, meet their people, you know, maybe learn some things, trade resources, trade favors and all that. So I'm fine with that. It's just, you know, getting more down to like, how do you want to handle that? Do you want, you know, a renown system, which is more defined, more, shall we say, gamified, or, you know, do you want the factions to, you know, have more of a, subtle impact where it's just like you don't deal with them directly, but you know you meet some people who are associated with them, and you know that sort of paints your interactions with them, you know, like, oh, I'm looking for a trader, well I should probably look for, you know, like the merchant faction, you know, people associated with them, and just sort of go from there. It's just one way to think about how to actually have these factions impact the gameplay.
Yeah, no.
This table with the numbers is reminding me of a certain friend we have who kept a numerical score for his character's attitude towards other characters.
Oh yeah.
yeah. There's that.
That was funny though. I'm not gonna lie. That was funny.
It was pretty funny.
See, player does have a bag of holding, and now they're Redline Oberon Star Racers Astral Sea competition to get home. Oh my god. Now that's crazy. Let's see. What's
the bag of holding thing?
Yeah, he's curious. Yeah, I am curious, Chris. Like, if you can elaborate, hit me up. I want to.
Yeah, I can think of a few things that I could do with a bag of holding.
Shove people in there. There is no oxygen. Die. Make a DC. Put a bag of holding.
The bomb thing?
Oh no! Put a bag of holding inside another bag of holding and make a black hole. Oh no!
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think the idea is the black hole kills you. But
I see.
Maybe you just got really strong bones.
See,
what the hell?
Speaking of bags of holding, I'm still upset that I'm still upset at John, because I had the great idea of like, what if I stored chickens in the bag of holding and I threw some like bottles of air in there to like keep them alive? No, you didn't want anything to do with it. You didn't want my endless bag of chickens.
Wait. How are the chickens gonna open the bottles with their chicken feet?
Yeah, okay,
well,
hold on.
They don't. The air will provide a constant, you know, stream of oxygen for them.
But it's bottled.
Are they magic bottles of air, or are they just like
yes, it's an actual wondrous item in 3.5.
For real?
It's called bottle of air.
Hold on.
Let's breathe.
Okay.
All right? And I want to get a bunch of those
why
to throw in there
chickens?
along with my, you know, army of chickens. And I could just have on-demand chickens.
Why?
Why not?
Okay.
Well, I mean, if I'm reading the description of the item, it says that the character can breathe out of the bottle as a standard action, but it doesn't say you can just uncork the bottle to like oxygenize an open space.
Give me some creative liberty, okay? We're in a fantasy setting with bags of holdings and bottles of air, okay?
I'm not playing devil's advocate, bro. I have to be the DM who has to shut this shit down.
Fuck the rules.
Put a bag of holding. Oh yeah, the black hole thing. Yeah.
I see. It actually has official rules. Destroys the thing. Oh.
Well, that's where the whole like aero bomb thing came from.
I didn't know about that. It's interesting. It got me there. Let's see. Oh, this is kind of an interesting thing. This section talking about like magic in your world. Earlier on, before you popped in here, Kombucha, we were talking about this, where it was more or less like on our list. We had. Is it a high setting or like high fantasy versus low fantasy? That's more or less up to you. It's like, is it a case where is magic seen as frightening or is it normalized? You know what I mean? And again, that's really up to you as the DM. You can sort of decide what type of story you want to tell with that. Like, I can give you an example. I've been playing Dragon Age. Dragon Age, in that sense, is a world where there is magic, but it's sort of like they fear it. So they usually have like orders to gather the mages together and keep them like under watch. But vice versa, in a regular D&D setting, it's like magic's kind of a wondrous thing. It's very much it's good. Blood magic, oh my. Look, I've learned my lesson. I don't trust that.
Stay demonios. Am I the only one who's kind of like, I feel like the definition of low versus high fantasy has just gotten increasingly like nondescript or like non-definite. It's like, I don't know. I hear the term low fantasy get used for all kinds of like ranges of shit. Because like I've heard low fantasy used to describe like there's just no magic and it's essentially just medieval, maybe with some weird creatures in it. I wouldn't even
call that low fantasy. I would just say it's like no fantasy. It's just a medieval.
Well, I mean,
okay, all right. Look. You're right. There can be monsters. I can understand that part, but you're right. This is actually a really interesting topic because whenever I think high fantasy, I would say mid fantasy would be like, there's magic, there are monsters, but it's not like high fantasy.
You just call your campaign mid?
Yes. Look, I'm not saying we're in Eberron because I would say that's like high fantasy where it's like magical cyberpunk. Okay, that's like all the way
that's
to the
interesting.
Right.
Like that's where like we can poke the hole in the argument because not everybody in Eberron can use magic. But like if I want to go ridiculous, like let's look at like anime, bro. Look at like fairy tale, bro. That's like people use magic to heat water.
Okay,
like,
true. Very true. Fair enough.
You know, like that. I could point to like certain settings and be like, that's definitely high fantasy. But then like, is Eberron inherently a high fantasy setting? Like, I don't know.
That's tough because it's like I just jokingly said, it's the cyberpunk of fantasy because while it is a situation where you're right, there are some people who cannot use magic in that setting. I would say magic is intertwined with a lot of the science and innovation there. I mean, that's where Warforged come from. It's where artificers sort of use magic with technology to build gadgets and other interesting things. Hell, even Warforged and Homunculus. So it's stuff like that where it's kind of tough. I would say, to me, I would consider that a very high fantasy setting. But most D&D campaigns either around the middle or skew more towards that area of fantasy, if you sort of get what I'm getting at. Where low fantasy, I would say monsters would still be involved, but the level of which magic would be is hit or miss. I don't know. Maybe there would be not as many magic users, and it would be maybe seen as a myth or sort. But I see. Low fantasy is like The Witcher. I gotta throw
a wrench because like The Witcher, like I could think of a few people who would describe The Witcher as high fantasy, which is like what kind of the impetus of this discussion for me. Because I agree with you. I would call Witcher like lower fantasy. Yeah.
The monsters in Witcher are frankly terrifying.
Yeah,
they're pretty extra.
They're pretty extra. So it's just like, like you can't describe. I feel like you can't take like monsters out of the discussion and just solely focus on magic. Because like I feel like in terms of like Witcher, like the monsters are like actually pretty fucking magical.
Oh, of course.
And like it's the people who are like, they're relatively mundane, all things considered. But these monsters, they're crazy.
Also, let's not forget that the core like antagonistic force is the fucking Wild Hunt. And that's high fantasy as shit. So
absolutely.
Bloodborne is, I would put, very high fantasy.
Yeah, Bloodborne is very high fantasy.
The entire game's like a dream. Like, it's not even, spoiler, kind of. Not really, but...
No, I'm with you there. I would say that is a high fantasy setting because it's... Okay, this is going to sound funny. Would you consider the Eldritch in that situation the fantasy part? I would say yes, because not only do you have, like, the fantastical monsters that you're fighting, all these horrors and stuff, but, it's so out of the norm. I would consider that like a high fantasy setting in its own regard. Although there are like things I would say I would almost put it in like the Eberron category because not everyone uses magic. Sometimes they're just monsters, and there are things like that. But at least that's where I would put it on the scale, I guess.
I think Joe's point is important that like you can't really distill it down to just magic users.
No, of course not.
Because also what is defined as magic is kind of
very ambiguous and
unclear. Like there's no wizards in Bloodborne, right? Like no one's walking around with a fucking staff or whatever. Like
no.
But as a character, like your tools for using magic are literally tools. Like they're hunter tools. So they're items that you like can use to like use like quote unquote spells, but it's not like a so it's kind of a like
you got a pocket full of wondrous items.
The world building itself, the circumstance of the world, and like the way it's kind of a giant nightmarescape, that would land it pretty squarely in high fantasy, but that doesn't really have anything to do with like magic users.
Yeah, no, you're right. I agree with you. But let's see, low fantasy.
Thank goodness I don't care to categorize.
I know.
I mean, that's I think that was my real point, which is that like it's such a messy definition.
Oh yeah,
that
it's tricky.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, what do you want out of your setting? I guess like I get people use terms like this is a shorthand, but to be honest with you, like I feel like it's the details that matter. It's what feels good to you.
Yeah, no,
sci-fi can be hard.
Yeah, so totally can be. Let's see. Let's see. Consider these questions when fitting magic into your world. Is magic common? Is it socially unacceptable? Is magic rare? Let's see. What are unusual members of each spellcasting class? How common are these how common are those who can cast high level spells? It's like that stuff I get. Like I would say, if you're gonna do magic in your setting, it's again just kind of depends on like at what level do you want it? Do you want there to be like big powerful spellcasters, or do you want it to still be like smaller scale? But that's more or less where we were at. Okay, also now this is an interesting thing, like restrictions, like what magic is considered a taboo and stuff like that. Obviously, don't destroy the world, stuff like that. Destructive spells are prohibited in certain situations, things like that you as the DM can obviously say, like, you probably don't want people running around Baldur's Gate blasting everyone with fireballs. That's just saying,
Should have never given teenagers magic.
It's the new fireworks, don't you know? Let's see. Schools of magic, it's like talking about what would be acceptable. What are the schools that would be taught, maybe? Teleportation circles. Okay, this is the other thing too, and you may or may not have heard us talk about it at the start, but we talked a bit about like how a lot of the book focuses mostly on a top-down perspective, where we talked about for us when we're starting a campaign setting or talking about maybe building a campaign out, we start from the hook and go from the ground up with a lot of like basic stuff, like what is the setting, who are the the people involved, what is the common ground that the player is going to be going through. The book actually would prefer you start from top down and look at things like what pantheon of gods are you using? What type of it's like what type of world do you want? It's like you see what I mean? Where I'm like, I disagree with how the book wants you to go about it, because not everyone is like the perfect DM, or not everyone is a fantasy writer. You know what I mean? So typically,
that really jumps out at me, because like when the way it's described, like I'm having flashbacks to like watching what's fucking Brendan Lee Mulligan's show again? Is it Dimension 20?
I think it is. I don't remember.
But like it's like you said, like not everybody is interested in writing an entire like full blown. Not everyone's Brandon Sanderson, right? Like, have you ever listened to Dimension 20? Cool. Yeah. Have you guys ever listened to Brandon Sanderson like talk? Yeah. He's done a lot of like presentations and like stuff. He's very funny to listen to, because he's very smart, but he's so like he's a very strong personality, I guess. And he's very just like, you gotta like have all these fucking rules, you gotta go foundational, you got like you're talking about like gods and shit or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't know. Here's the deal. Like, I think I come from I have a non-standard approach to stuff like this, because whenever I do anything creatively, I always come at it from the perspective of a fan rather than like what's the proper way to create something. Because everybody who's inspired ever starts because they consume something that they like, and it gets them to then go make more stuff like that. And so what I think, and what my first priority is when I make anything, is hey, like what as a player do I think would be cool? Like, what would I want to participate in? That usually starts with, like you said, some kind of hook, some kind of encounter, or just maybe like a city that's cool, like that I want to explore around. And then again, you scaffold out from there. Like, you get the relevant things that like matter. And obviously, like, if I need a pantheon of gods for my setting, I'll make one. But if I don't,
and like that's the point. Like, the book sort of makes a point of saying, if you don't know, you can borrow old pantheons. Maybe use like the Olympics, or like the Olympic gods, or all that other stuff. You can just grab whatever you want, really. But like, I guess sort of a counterpoint to the Dimension 20 on that, I could tell you, I look at it through the Matt Colville perspective, or the MCDM perspective, where in his perspective with running the game, he says, don't worry about that. He goes, let's say you want to run a session, start simple. He goes, let's do simple situation. You need to send the adventurers into a cave and have them go get a treasure. And he says, start with that. And I took that sort of approach when it comes to sort of how I like to DM, or how I learned, was you don't need to start grandiose. You're just going to overwhelm yourself. So starting on a more personal level is a better way to get the players more invested. Then you can worry about those grander scale things later. You don't necessarily need to start there, unless that's what you want to do. And again, you know, that's if you are the fantasy writer, and I'm just a guy that likes to play some games with friends. So
yeah, I mean, like, if you're good at writing in that style, if it helps you to be like, yo, let me like literally go Genesis on this bitch and start from the impetus of the world itself, and that's like how you function, that's different. But like most people, I feel like struggle with that because they get into something that they want to try that's new and they get instantly overwhelmed.
Yeah, of course. See, I'm just seeing what you wrote, Chris. In most major cities, the guards have special birds that change color depending on the type of ooh, okay. Let's see. Correlates with the magic the person casts, and if they use enchantment magic, it shoots off a flare. Interesting. You need to start and finish the middle. Yeah. You need to start and a finish, and the middle is whatever you want in between. Exactly. And that's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, where I said, don't plan everything out entirely. You do want to leave gaps open because plans change, things shake up, and your players are definitely going to influence that because, you know, that sort of leads into like a whole case about railroading, but we haven't talked about that. We'll worry about that later. This is an interesting note in regards of like magic in the campaign setting. It talks about bringing back the dead. I guess this is interesting. It's like how rare of an occurrence is it for someone to use like raise dead or, you know, resurrection. That's up to you. Typically, I don't know. It's like I would say death is more of like a story thing. However, it does happen within gameplay, and that can be a bit of story. Now we're finally at look, see, there you go. This is
interesting blurb here, by the way. A soul can't be returned to life if it doesn't want it to be. I wonder if that's a new addition to this setting or not.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Yeah,
the second paragraph.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, maybe. Let's see. Now this is the interesting thing. It's funny. So when we talked about building your campaign setting, it talks about starting on the macro level. But here, for building your campaign, it does, you know, what I would generally say is the right thing. Start small. This is like what we were talking about earlier. You definitely, I would say if you're following the book, for example, and this is your first time, John DM here, I'm here to write my own thing. This is definitely the way to go about it. You know, I would say, you know, do a base camp for the players, then set up like a region of a map that you want to use and give the players that area to sort of run around. You can create a handful of adventures. It doesn't need to be complicated. And this is sort of the other fun stuff that we're gonna sort of get to here, where it's like we can just like write up a bunch of nonsense or just like roll some stuff here from tables, which we'll see in a sec, where it's like these are the fun parts that we're gonna get to. And this is like talking about what are the events that sort of put everything into motion. Well, we ended up deciding, okay, we're going to be using a city-state. We've got our government style, which we rolled on the table, and we got dictatorship.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, so dictatorship?
Yo,
okay, all right. Okay, so using these tables, we're going to have some fun. We're going to use it to sort of generate our little bit of campaign events. No, you're good.
I'm sorry. Can you go down? I saw something that jumped out at me.
Oh, okay, sure.
When not to shake it up. What does this say?
Beware of false action or action for its own sake. False action does not move the story forward, engage characters, or cause them to change. Many action movies suffer from false action. So it's like, don't derail your own campaign with like too many side things. I think that's what it's getting at here.
Well, yeah, I'm a little confused by the point here because the example they bring up about like, you know, y'all can just say Vin Diesel, I won't sue you. But like, it fucking, I think they don't want low stakes action, which I guess is like, yes, that's a fair criticism.
Yeah, I think that works. General rule, scale, all these things, world shaking events. Okay, so we're gonna roll on some tables for fun. Okay. All right, we got our city state. We don't have its name. But we'll
you have your die 6.
Oh, hold on. I gotta just toggle so it's visible again. All right. Bam. We have our little dice roller here. Okay. Let's see. First things first. What is the earth-shaking, world-shaking event? Because we're gonna have some fun here. All right, world-shaking event. What do we got?
It's so tiny on my screen.
I know. All right.
Did you hard log dictatorship without rolling?
We rolled it. We got
okay.
it was a 1d100, and we got 27.
I thought you just picked it. I'm like, damn, he's so based. He's so based.
All right, let's see. Wow, we got a 1. Okay, Rise of Elite. Wow, it's very fitting.
Are we doing fucking?
We're making Planet of the Apes.
Well, we're doing Stalin, bro.
Oh my God.
Dictatorship, Rise of a Leader.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Could have been a kleptocracy if only you rolled exactly a 95.
Wait, what is a fucking kleptop?
Oh, well, I'm glad
thing.
you
What is
asked. Hold on, let me just scroll all the way back up. Let's see, where is it?
Which, by the way, I did look back in 3.5.
Yeah.
Apparently, the soul has to be willing clause does exist.
Oh,
It's just really small and
not very
easy to
much
miss.
talked about. Okay. Well,
Groups
that's
of
interesting.
individuals primarily seeking wealth for the.
So think like a bandit kingdom.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's jump back down. I can't believe it. Rise of a Leader. Oh man. Okay. Let's see. All right. Next thing, Rise or Fall of a Leader. We already have that. Okay, what type of leader is he? All right. Type of leader. Let's roll. All right, we got to roll 1d6 again. It is art and culture. Art and culture.
Oh, like
Yeah. Yeah, don't. Behave,
We
gentlemen.
really like painting and Austria.
Of course.
Yeah,
Behave,
yeah.
gentlemen. All right, let's see what else we got here. Cataclysmic disaster. Well, we already got that, so we're good to jump to our next thing. We've already got our world-shaking event. Let's see, what else do we have here?
wait, didn't we
Wow.
need like 3 of those or?
Oh, wait, hold on, you're
We
right.
have multiple world-shaking events.
Oh,
Yeah, it said like at most like 3.
oh, you're right. Okay, hold on. We gotta. All right, we're rolling 3 more.
General rule can sustain up to 3. So it says up to.
You know
so
what?
yeah. We
Let's
just have
do
one.
it.
Just have one.
Yeah, we'll have 1 for now.
Huh.
Okay. All right, we got that.
You sure you don't want to roll another one since we're getting dangerously close to recreating a certain
You know what? We'll do one more.
European country
We'll
in
do
a
one
certain
more. We'll do one more.
mid 20th century
Yeah.
era?
We'll do one more. We'll do a second one for good measure. Okay.
I'm just saying.
Let's see. What do we
I did
got?
not see this coming.
Okay. All right. Right. Roll my fucking d10. Hold up.
I swear to God, if you roll a fucking 6, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Don't. I can't. You're killing me, dude. All right.
World can't handle 4
We got 2.
shaking events. I wish my world was like that.
Okay.
All right.
You know what? This at least we can move away. We can move away from World War II with this.
Okay, you're right. All right, we got Fall of a Leader. All right. I guess we're writing type again. Okay.
Oh boy.
All right, let's see. 1d6. Here we go. Let's roll. 2, a religious leader.
Oh, we're doing multiple of these?
It's just that we got the same thing twice. Oh,
Yeah,
wait.
so we lost a religious leader and
Yep.
we got an art and culture leader.
Yeah, it ended up being
Oh,
the
got
same thing. Wow, what a shakeup. The world can't handle 4 world-shaking events. Oh my god.
I wish my world was like that.
I know.
You could cook with this.
Okay,
Like,
all right.
I already see.
Let's see.
I see a line. I see the line.
Okay, all right. Let's see what else we got.
I see the play. We got the mana, dude. The resources are untapped.
Oh, by the way, one thing I do love, I still like how a lot of like the art is in this. Like, look at that. That looks sick.
This is pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's keep on going. Got that. What else? Oh, damn. Yo, what up? Let's see. Okay, so this is actually something interesting. This is talking about tracking time and sort of keeping track or like. Now, I know we typically just stick with like regular month, date, you know, days of the week,
calendar, or whatever the fuck
yeah.
it's called.
Yeah, we typically stick with that. Also, thank you for the hydrate. Let me just drink some water. Appreciate it. But yeah, we typically stick with like our regular calendar, but there are other options. Like you can, like I know like our friend that we mentioned before that he's DMing for us, he technically is using the same like Gregorian calendar structure, but everything's named differently. But you know, typically like in a lot of like campaign books, like I know Pathfinder does the same thing basically. It's the same days of the week, same like hour schedule, but you know, different name. You know what I mean?
I think his in particular is actually unchanged.
Oh, because I could have swore it was like at one point.
I think it is.
I think maybe in the old version of his campaign, it may have been something else.
I know in one of my campaigns I tried changing it up, but it's kind of
messy. It's a lot of work.
No, it's messy and it's a lot of work.
Because it's like, you know, the days of the week and the months and all that in our calendar system, like they have like specific like meanings and purposes.
Yeah.
So if you want to replace it, you also have to fill in like, you know, the whole point of, you know, why this system, you know, all the important days, you know, the structure, you have to fill in all those details to some extent. And I come to terms with the fact that I really don't care to. So
yeah, no, look, I'm with you there where it's like, is it more flavor for the world? Yes, I think it's cool, but at the same time, it's a lot of work. Let's see. Here's the thing.
I'm sorry. I just got an ad on Twitch for Avowed in this game. Like, it's the most gameplay I've seen of it, and it looks fucking sick.
Yeah, no, I was I was looking at a trailer for it too. I'm like, man, this game looks really cool. I hope it's good.
Yeah, meanwhile, I got an ad for chocolate milk the moment like Vice needed to hydrate.
No, thanks.
The chalky milk.
The chalky milk. Let's see. High Harvest and Dragon Moon. Yeah, too confusing. Let's see, you've come up
with stuff. It weirds me out a little bit sometimes to have like a very mundane modern calendar in a fantasy setting, but then at the same time, it's a lot of effort to rewrite one for a very small detail. So I'm just kind of like...
I can say, you want me to give you the best example, and you might know this, Kombucha, because you've played Pathfinder. Do you remember in Kingmaker, when it's like, the guy tells you, meet me here at this day, and I'm like, what fucking day is he talking about? I don't know the fucking calendar. You pull up the days of the week, you're like, I have to wait. And I'm like, what day is it? And then you're like, oh, it's what is it? Like, some made-up day. I'm like, I don't know the days of the week. What's happening? And I had to Google it, because I'm like, I don't know the days of the week in Pathfinder. And the funniest thing was, there was literally the number one asked question on like the forum for that was, I don't understand what the days of the week in Pathfinder are. And they were like, that's okay, no one did. You had to go and check a book. You had to go and like pull up a resource book from like actual like Paizo. So
Schizoid King forgets how days work.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's like, you know, understandable why it's like, look, I'm okay with just, it may be lore breaking, but for convenience sake for players, I'm okay with it. We can just do that.
Yeah, it's so much effort for something that barely comes up that I'm just like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's like, I'm totally okay with that. That's okay. It's more for convenience on the player's end, if anything. If anyone wants to sort of go based off that, you know.
I'm not a fucking chronologist or whatever.
Yeah. Look, you know, funnily enough, I thought you were actually going to reference a game called Metaphor Refantasio.
Yeah, they do that.
They kind of changed the calendar.
Yeah, it's like 5 days a week.
It more or less functions the same way. It's just, you know, different names and all that. Which, by the way, they cheated on those names.
Oh, they totally did.
No.
Go for it.
God, do I nerd out? Do I weeb out here?
No, go for it. Go for it.
All right. So certain days, right?
Yeah.
So like they renamed, I believe, I think it was like one of the days they renamed to like Waters Day.
Yeah.
But in the real world, you know, for us Wednesday in Japanese it'd be Suiyobi, which uses the kanji that means like water. So they literally made it like water. Or like Metals Day, which for Friday would be Kinyobi, and Kin is the kanji for gold. So it's just like, I see, you just switched around some synonyms here, or, you know, all that shit.
I mean, look, that's clever enough.
Kind of cool though.
Yeah.
Like they basically just did English to Japanese back to English.
Yeah.
Yes, they did that.
Cool.
Or like Arbor's Day, Mokyobi, which is the kanji for forest.
I kind of fuck with that actually. Like no memes. Like I think that's kind of cool.
I will say that's cool. That went over my head because I don't know the Japanese days of the week, so that's pretty clever.
I just remember that from high school. That's literally it.
I mean, hey, that counts. That's something.
Still way more Japanese than I know. Did I? Okay, like really fucking quick side tangent.
No, go for it.
I've said, I think I told this, but I never told it on a stream. My mom was like, "Hey, your dad and I are gonna learn French because they're gonna be in. Was it French? I want to say it was French because they're gonna be in France for a little bit.
Yeah.
Or they're doing like just a general Europe trip, and they're gonna be in France for a while. And she's like, we're thinking we're gonna start like I've heard the best way to learn a language is to watch movies in that language, like subtitled. And I'm like, Mom, I've watched a lot of Japanese stuff over the years with subtitles, and I don't know a fucking word of Japanese.
Oh man. Look, the only like nonsensical.
I know daijoubu, and I don't actually know what that word means. I just know what to say.
Like the only nonsensical note I could give you, it's like, okay, because of like all the Megaton I play, it's like ice spells are called bofu or bofula. What is bofu? It's fucking snow. It's like, I think that's literally what it translates, or some like cold, or I don't know. It's bit like just a butchering of the word like cold or ice or snow or something like that. But yeah, there you go. There's a little nonsense for the day.
Yeah.
Oh man. Exactly. See, you get it.
What
else?
This.
Get off topic to the new thing, the Roman-looking planet. It's funny. I've actually been seeing a lot of like screenshots of that.
Fucking Warhammer 40k shit, bro.
Yeah, no, dude, no.
They just show a different time period.
Dude, Romans with social media and smartphones is gonna be wild. Yeah, no, you're totally right. Although that could be like some cool looking design. If they actually...
Caesar would have got his ass canceled so fucking fast. Are you kidding me?
For real.
I can't make. I don't think I can make this joke on your stream. Never mind. Go
Anyways.
next. Go next.
Yo, but like old philosophers on social media would go crazy.
Bro, look, what was
I'm not prepared to witness that level of dick pics.
Look, all I can say,
public
Joe.
Platforms, dude.
Look, Joe. All I can say is your theory about someone being ghostwritten by another philosopher, bro. That was his burner account.
Shakespeare out here like I got hacked, bro.
Oh my god.
Bro, they cracked my shit. Brother, they cracked my shit.
And to Elon. That's a good one.
Yep. Oh my god. Oh, this is interesting. There's the section here on how ending a campaign. Oh man. That's the hardest thing you can do as a DM. If you ever get to that point. So campaign ending should be tie up all the loose threads at the beginning and its middle. You don't have to take the campaign all the way to level 20 for a satisfying ending. I don't think I've ever been in a campaign that made it to 20. Wrap up the campaign whenever the story reaches its natural conclusion. Allow space at the end, so, in case, you want your characters to have their wrap-up story. Plus, also, it gives you room for unfinished business, like it sort of mentions, in regards to maybe a sequel campaign, maybe a follow-up, maybe different adventures.
Do you know, what the highest level we've ever gotten to in any of our campaigns is over the years? So I want to say it was 15, but that was also back when we didn't understand the XP system.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, man. I somewhere around there, yeah.
To clarify, to be fair, we were literally in high school, so cutting my DM some slack here, but we were under the impression that the way prestige classes worked is you basically just dumped XP to them in parallel. So rather than them taking a level, you just level it's essentially we just alted them. Right?
I see.
So it was kind of it's hard to say what level we really were because
yeah, of course.
We might have been level 15, but we probably had the stats of level 35 or whatever because we had 8 classes each or some shit. It's it was one of our second campaigns ever.
Right. No, it's funny actually. Do you want to talk about EXP and stuff? I think at one point in one of these streams we talked about differences between milestone versus EXP per kill. I've been experimenting a bit with both, where I know in the past couple of campaigns I've DM'd for you guys, I've sort of shaken it up. Like I would do EXP per milestone, but in the last campaign I did like EXP per encounter. And I think we've had a little bit of interesting stuff going back and forth where, I'm making sure that you guys are sort of on pace to sort of get a level every so often, but you also get rewarded for doing extra things. So it's always sort of been the goal. So
I actually really like what you've done, Joe, before with XP, where we do okay, I will say as a default, I don't give a shit. I don't know if anybody in chat has a strong opinion about milestone versus like XP, but like me personally, I do not fucking care. Like I have absolutely zero preference.
Yeah.
But
I like
one thing that I know that you've done in the past that was cool was you had us do milestone for leveling, but then XP was just purely a currency for crafting.
You're right.
And other things.
Yeah.
So you got rewarded to go like pursue things for extra XP, but it wasn't tied to your character level.
Yeah, because ultimately I see XP as like a reward for, players accomplishing things, interacting with the world. But, I appreciate milestones for, actually keeping the players on pace wherever I want them to be.
Of course. Yeah. Like, I agree with you there. Because I like using milestones because it makes sure that, I want you guys to feel rewarded for doing an accomplishment. You know what I mean? I think that's goes without saying. But I also do like getting EXP from sort of different elements. Like, okay, I think the example I gave the last D&D stream I did was, remember in the FFD 20 campaign I ran with you guys, as you guys were sort of traveling towards the south, you used your perception, you were able to detect that there was a large pack of raptors up ahead. Now, they're simple animals. You can either hunt them, fight them, whatever you want. And we sort of had it where, okay, you guys rolled well enough, so I let it be up to you. How do you want to resolve this? We could either say, you guys go in, give me a couple attack rolls, call it even. It's not like you're going to lose to a pack of raptors, as now at this point, you guys are a lot tougher than you think. So I would think that's totally okay to just have you guys go through it like that. But you know what I mean? It was the fact that on top of how that campaign's EXP worked was you got the EXP for the encounter, because let's be honest, we did it Earthbound style. You didn't need to fight the encounter because you guys were going to win easy. But on top of getting the EXP for that, you did also get the EXP for traveling and stuff like that. It's those little things that I try to sort of keep in mind, at least in that campaign, because that was the first time I'd really given EXP per kill. And it's funny because I think back to another campaign I ran with you guys where we had a player who didn't typically play with us, and they typically play like more like meat grinder campaigns where it's like they have to kill every enemy to get EXP. And in his regard, he almost jumped off a bridge to chase after a ghost just so he can get EXP for a kill. And
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and you guys were like, wait, what are you doing? Stop, you don't have to do that, it's okay. And I had to like over the board go, okay guys, look, you can let him go, it's okay. He's not gonna, you're still gonna get the EXP for him, don't worry about it.
I feel like even in like that kind of setting, like the way I would, most DMs I would hope treat it is if the enemy runs away like out of defeat or surrender, that counts as defeating them for the purpose of getting XP.
Let's see.
Inspiration, we don't play 5e, so we can't do that.
I know.
Well, I guess we can. I don't think it stops.
I mean,
doing
actually, I was thinking something like that in regards to how. Okay, so now I mentioned in sort of a back and forth with you guys before, one of the ideas that I have for a more dynamic idea in the like FFD 20 campaign we do. You know how you have your limit breaks, and that's like your 2 points, and I would basically say those are like your bravery points or whatever. That was something I was thinking you could use those to perform a heroic action or something like that. That could be like an alternative to maybe using those specials or something. But that's an idea that I've sort of stolen basically from like 5e, because even it says like you could use inspiration for these other things as well. And I like that idea. I think the idea of like inspiration points are fun. It also kind of reminds me of I don't remember what they're called in the Warhammer tabletop that we played.
Can we? Yes, I don't remember what they are in the fate points, I believe.
There you go, fate points. Yeah. So I would totally be all right with maybe implementing something like that in a campaign, as like an external thing, as like maybe a once per session thing, depending on like that. But I can understand why we wouldn't run it in every campaign as well. But You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like, okay, to somewhat derail, but can I complain about how we used to deal with XP and like some of the Warhammer campaigns I've played with?
Oh god.
Oh, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah,
I feel like every time we've done a Warhammer campaign, I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay. Having XP be doled out as like a merit-based voting system is awful. Is terrible. Imagine this.
What about the voting?
So imagine this. You have like a number of like awards, like, you know, best RP
Mario
or,
Party
you know,
bonus
best in
stars.
combat
Oh,
or like,
no.
you know, most unlucky. And they have like XP values attached to them. And the players would like vote for, you know, who you know, should have, you know, what, you know, reward.
Right.
And like at a surface level, it seemed like a good idea because it's like, hey, you know, we're being directly rewarded for, you know, the things
your
you know, we
participation.
do in the campaign. You know, it feels great. And then it just kind of turns kind of real nasty, where it's just like, you know, everyone wants every award. You know, there's some disputes of like, what does it really mean to, you know, be the most in character? You know, because I'm like the strong silent type, and all I did was sit around and beat things up. So like, you know, I was the most in character sort of thing. It just kind of ended up as like a mess.
You know, it's funny. I didn't really
Literally
think too
Mario
much about
bonus story. No, I mean, like, I
no,
don't
you're
even know
right.
why this requires a fucking clarifying statement, but you know what? Sometimes you just gotta set the ground rules. Don't fucking give your players a power disparity, right? Gold is one thing, but XP is just a lot more painful because, like, when that directly ties to, like, the amount of shit your character can do, because in Warhammer specifically, like, you don't level up. You just purchase abilities with XP. So, like, a character with more XP than another character literally just has more shit. He just has more things in his character sheet. And that feels like ass.
Yeah, no, like, that's the other interesting thing to sort of note. Like, I know I mentioned in one of the systems that I'm looking at running, which is like the SMT system, there is a difference in EXP gain per whatever class you play. So it's like, that's kind of an interesting thing. Yeah, where it's like humans in that setting have the fastest EXP growth, but they're more or less like the potential man. You turn into whatever you want and have subclasses, but you're typically weaker than the other playable classes, where you have demons and fiends, where they're a lot tougher, but they gain EXP at a slower rate, or it's like they gain the same
amount of EXP. It's like a level adjustment sort of thing.
More or less, it's level adjustment. So that's sort of like the interesting thing on that, where it's like there's the plus and minuses on that. But no, going back to the Warhammer topic on that, I'll be honest, when it came to those campaigns, I didn't really understand how big of a difference that was. But looking at it from like a D&D perspective, if we were gonna say run our campaign, okay, you typically want everyone to be around or basically be the same level, because one, it's just easier for you, the DM, to manage and run encounters for, and two, you know, you're right, it sucks when you have people that are starting to skip ahead too much and people who are falling behind too little. This is gonna sound funny. I'm sure you guys have heard of, like, what is it? The deck of cards that everyone always draws from, and it's like
deck of many things.
Yeah, and people, thank you, and people always have stories about, oh, I drew the card, I'm level 20, I guess I just win. It's like, no, it's like it's like,
should we tell our story? We had that actually.
You did?
In a very old
Okay,
campaign.
all right, now you gotta tell me, because I have never heard of. All right,
I don't know if you remember more than I do, because like all I remember is one of us pulled a mansion. Like he gotcha pulled
a mansion.
Actually, it was more than a mansion. It was a whole freaking castle.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, and it was that kind of like turned that campaign on its head at that point, because it's like we're like literally in the middle of a dungeon, like crawling through this shit, just like trying to scrape, you know, what little wealth we can. Yeah. And then we just pull that card. It's just like, well, I don't have to worry about this peasant shit.
And you're like, I'm rich.
I have a motherfucking castle.
I'm rich.
You know, the funniest thing is, I'm reminded of like in what was it? I think in like the D&D 1.0 or advanced D&D book, where Gary Gygax goes, why would a noble go out on an adventure? And he just has like, I'm just imagining him being very grumpy writing this. He's like, why the hell would any noble go out on an adventure? They have all the money and everything at home. They should stay there. Only the poor people are adventurers. And I'm like, damn, that's rude. But
you get a tiny castle, a little mini castle.
The deck of mini, yeah.
Oh man.
But,
so when I draw the card that gets me smited, does he just take off one of my fingernails?
Oh no.
But yeah, but
Mhm.
going back to the original
Yeah.
point of XP
Yeah.
milestones, rewarding effort versus, not being too, creating a rift, because I have played around with some ideas of like how to assign XP,
Yeah.
and it's, because it's like you do want to reward players for, interacting with your world, accomplishing things, doing cool things.
Yeah, of course.
But, you don't want there to be like a disparity either.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
one of you, one of the chatters did mention, like the inspiration system as like a way to like give small rewards without, like the XP level disparity. But on the other hand, I did also see someone mention like, wanting to do the milestone system, but not having like a consistent like, cast of like players, playing with strangers. So needing to rely on, XP.
Can we talk about that actually? Because that does bring up an interesting point. Because like that's just not an issue that like I feel like we've ran into. Because every time we run campaigns, the sort of unspoken rule we go with is everyone's normalized to the same level.
Yeah.
Like if you join the campaign late, you're just the party is at a set level.
Yeah.
Which
wow,
like,
I didn't even realize
honestly,
that.
Honestly, you get enough disparity, to be honest, with like build, like I don't know if build quality is the right word, but like the way people build their characters, some characters are going to like struggle more than others.
Yeah,
and like that already by itself creates plenty of disparity. Like I don't think you need to make more by having people be different levels.
Yeah, like it's funny that you bring that up because I never really thought about that. Considering, whenever we do a campaign, if anyone joins late, you're just at the level of the party, and we sort of keep that general rule where party level is the level, not individual level. But it's funny that you bring that up because I didn't actually think about that. I guess that is true. When people would join a campaign, I guess it's up to the sort of DM's discretion on that, whether do they join at a reduced level? Because I have seen in some like stories of people talking about their campaigns, people would make a new character or join in late, and they'd be like 3 levels under, and then it's like, well, I guess I'm the scrub of the party. And
I'm like, personally, if I'm joining the table and he's like, you start at level like 1 and everyone's level 5, I'm like, I'm good, dude, thanks.
I'll skip it. Yeah.
I mean, there is a sort of logic of like, hey, us, the players who've been around for like a while, playing this same campaign for say like 3, 4, 5 months, like we built our shit up, and then we got this new guy coming in who's just strolling in, with like the same like level and wealth as us. It's just like, well, what the heck's the point?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and in all fairness, when you're lower level, because of the way the scaling works, you're going to catch up faster because, you need less XP to level up at lower levels.
That's also true. Now, I guess to sort of jump back to like the book and sort of where we're looking at, now this is kind of an interesting thing, and this is something that we've kind of been talking about as we've been going through this, is playstyle. Like, what type of campaign do you want to do? Some of the things it mentions
I read Waterdeep, but I just got extreme PTSD from Baldur's Gate, sorry.
Don't worry about it. So it's like, this is interesting because I think we have talked a little bit about this before, and typically the campaigns that we usually run are mostly... Yeah. Let's see. People can be on their level that serves a story purpose. Yes, I agree with you there. I think that's a really good point. But like I was saying, when it comes to like the campaigns that we typically run, ours are more focused on role playing, but there is combat. Like there are combat scenarios, but it's not combat scenario after combat scenario after combat scenario. There may be some sessions that are more geared towards combat heavy or combat focused, whether it be exploration or adventuring. But there are sessions that are mostly focused on role playing as well. That happens.
I would say I feel like we're decently combat heavy. Like we probably won't ever do more than one fight a session.
No,
but,
and
like,
I think that's fine.
The fights themselves are challenging. Like they're not really meant to be just like blow. Like I played in some campaigns where either you don't fight at all, or like the fights are just so like you pull up and it's no real like challenge for the party at all.
Yeah, and that is also the other thing I would say, which is kind of challenging. And I guess even talking about like the new system that I've been reading for like the SMT system, that system in the book itself has random encounters written in where it's like, after a certain amount of steps or something, you could do an encounter. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, you know what I mean? Because then it's like, how frequent are you getting into an encounter? It's like, is it immersion breaking? Is it, not. And it's like, that's sort of like another case where it's like, it's not Skyrim. There's not bandits hiding around every single tree waiting for you with a knife. You know what I mean? So it's like sort of, you have to find that right balance. And if you're the DM creating the campaign, I would say a combat encounter doesn't necessarily need to be combat. You can have encounters, whether it be like maybe there's a trap in a room and the party has to figure out how to deal with it. Maybe there is a situation like a rope bridge across a chasm and the party needs to figure out how to get across the rope bridge without destroying the bridge, or what is a way for them to go across it. That could be an encounter on its own. It doesn't necessarily need to be a combat focused situation, but it is still a situation which is getting the players thinking. And to me, I think that's a more valuable encounter than, you know, just here's like 5 goblins, go kill them, easy. You know what I mean? Because that's boring. You can make a goblin encounter fun, but the point is, you know what I mean? Making encounter that is interesting. And if you're gonna do it, how do I say this? It's like, I was gonna say do it right, but
I think we're starting to get a little bit into like what's my personal wheelhouse when it comes to like running games, because I don't think I'm exactly the most well-rounded DM, but one thing I do consider myself decently strong at is monster making.
Yeah, then by all means.
Combat encounters. And what I will say is the biggest challenge I have with this kind of stuff is like,
that's some cool
run the encounter of like CR4 goblins straight from the monster manual, right?
Yeah.
But like as a DM, that is boring for me to run.
No, of course. Now it's funny, we've talked about that, I think, before on like a previous like D&D stream, where I think even Krusnik brought it up, where Krusnik mentioned at one point, for them, they typically like running like third-party creatures or homebrewed creatures more than whatever's in the monster manual. Now, I agree in that sense, because you're right, CR3 goblins, boring. But I typically, in my case, for me, when it comes to like creating monsters, I like to use stuff from the monster manual and then just spruce it up where I need to, or just reskin it completely, because you could totally do that. There's nothing in the rules to say you can't.
Yeah, I've done that a few times. There are some very, very, very cool and creative monsters in a lot of supplemental handbooks that I think are totally usable just out of the box. And some of my favorite encounters I've even done were I just straight up plopped the monster from the book and then I built an encounter around it and it went great. Sometimes they're fully custom, sometimes they're lifted from a book, sometimes it's a combination of tweaking or editing certain things. It really just comes down to like, if I see something and it's cool, or if I'm just like, I just have an idea and I want to do it, like that's, what's gonna motivate that, right?
Yeah.
And I guess I could talk like, I don't know, like I could save this if you ever like, probably wouldn't make it to it tonight, but if you're ever doing a discussion about monster design, like I would love to really go deep on that, because I got stuff I could show, I got stuff I could talk about.
Oh yeah, we could totally do that. If not, like, I don't think we'll get to it tonight, but when we do get to talking about like making monsters and stuff, definitely would love to, like, we could pull up some custom monsters and like talk about it.
That's definitely the shit that I really get excited about when it comes to like making content, is I love making monsters. Yeah, because it's like, there are situations where it's like, I think even I've made like some custom creatures too, but you typically look at some stuff as references and then you go, what's cool, what can I add to this creature, and then you make fun stuff like that. And yeah, it's definitely like your wheelhouse on that, so we could totally do something like that and talk about it. See, many monsters lore pages can become full campaigns on its own, if it doesn't have to be always about dragons. Yeah, no, that's completely true. I've actually never ran a dragon before.
I haven't ran a dragon before either. I thought about it, but I never really quite knew how to do it. Maybe it's something
I have a lot of interest, to be honest. If it fits, like, my problem with dragons is it's like, if there's a narrative reason to have one, then sure, but like I don't usually like. Yeah, because they're
big, complicated creatures to run. Because what's to say the dragon stays 30 feet up in the air or like higher and just nukes you from orbit? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. So actually, that's another good point. Like, they're better for higher level campaigns as well.
Yeah, because the players have ways to deal with that sort of situation, you know what I mean? And I think that's great on its own, because if you try to do it, obviously don't run a dragon in a low-level campaign, that's death nil, don't do it.
But very small dragon. I mean, dude, there's a whole like organization of of like dragons by age and CR, and they can range from being very like suited for low-level parties when they're quite like juvenile.
Okay. Maybe I should try something like that then, because I haven't really thought about it. But yeah, okay, that could be an interesting thing to maybe include. But yeah, I think like an adult dragon in that sense, that would be I would say almost something to base a campaign around, if anything. Or, you know, a high-level encounter in a more complicated campaign, at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. What is this? Let's jump to the next section, because I think this is... Oh, this is just talking about, like, theming your campaign, different tiers of play. I'm curious, what is this? Oh, this is just talking about the levels of which the heroes should be. You know, this is funny, because we kind of did just talk about this, in a sense, where it's like, at what level should, you know, players be expected? I guess this is more the case of player wealth, what the capabilities of the players should be, and then, like, what sort of fitting challenges as you as the DM should give them. You don't want to give them anything too far ahead of what they should be able to do, because no TPK. I'm gonna be real, okay? You don't want a TPK. And if you don't know what that is, it's a total party kill.
Unless.
I mean, look.
If you're down, unless.
I mean, look. I would recommend you do not do a TPK unless maybe it's part of the story. Again, talk to your party.
Step away.
No problem.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, but again, talk
how
to
you
your
feel about
party
TPKs?
All right.
TP what?
Yeah, all right. So we're talking
Party
about
wipes.
Party wipes.
Oh, team party.
Yeah, total party kills.
I mean, if everyone's sick of the campaign or their party, I'm just sure, I'll kill them for free. Yeah, no problem.
I mean,
But,
okay, it can be funny in that sense, but like, okay. I mean, what would you do in that case? I mean, okay, there's like a couple ways to go about it, where it's like, if we accidentally TPK, whether it be I did something incredibly stupid in scaling an encounter, or maybe something else that, you know, happens, because that does happen, I would say, do you guys want to roll it back? And we could just genuinely do that. If not, okay, well then do you guys want to make new characters and we figure it out from there? You know what I mean?
I'm very confident that our current running DM would be absolutely willing to kill us.
100%.
We got it over our heads.
100% he would. I am 100% certain our current DM would kill us, and he would say, well, that sucked. All right, next characters.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't be an end of campaign thing.
No.
It just depends on how people are. But like,
Yeah.
he'd do it.
Oh, he totally would.
He definitely would.
Oh, yeah. Let's see, level 1 adventurers shouldn't be waltzing up to the castle and asking to talk to the king. Exactly, of course. Yeah, and like, especially when we're looking at things like this, like our tiers of hero, it's like, you know, when the characters start becoming more known, and I think if we go back to the idea that, like, me and Joe talked about earlier in the stream, with the idea of, like, let's say you have your home base, let's say in this case it's our city-state, and we've got our adventurers guild there. Eventually, we're going to become known, and, you know, eventually they might have either higher contracts coming to look for them specifically, or maybe they gain notoriety and the government notices them and is like, hey, we're going to send some guys over here to you and say, hey, can you help us out with a high priority object or something? You know what I mean? Always tons of different things you can come up with, and, you know, totally okay. Oh, what's this? Oh, flavor of fantasy. Yes. Do you want a horror themed campaign, or, you know, something else? There's lots of, like, other options. Also, okay, interesting point here. Starting at a higher level. Let's see, experienced players familiar with the capabilities. Let's see, start with characters above level 1, creating high-level characters using the same creation. This is just, like, actually kind of interesting, because I didn't know there were different tiers of wealth for this. Like, I knew there were different tiers of wealth per level, but I didn't know there were tiers of wealth per magic setting. So you have your high magic and low magic, like we sort of talked about before.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, gold is the main gate behind getting powerful magic items. And I mean, if we like, so, you know, you got to keep in mind, I'm mostly 3-5 player.
Yeah.
So like from that context, like the difference between like having, you know, like rings of wizardry, which double your spell slots for a given tier. So like, let's just say like, I think a second level one is like 40,000. 40,000 gold is the difference between like, you know, having that item and not, but there's no other thing that limits you from using it. So theoretically, if you had like infinite gold or whatever, right, you could have an extremely, extremely powerful character who otherwise is completely identical to a character that has less gold. So it's a big power limiter, how much money you get.
Yeah. And it's funny because Joe earlier brought up the fact that he said in a lot of the older campaigns that you guys ran, everyone was traditionally extremely poor.
Yes, very.
Like I
Get like fucking like 30 gold for like an entire adventure.
look, it's okay. I've been trying to sort of up the ante on that as like
I think we
like,
all collectively
yeah.
have figured out that like the game is a bit more fun when you have more options.
Yeah.
And the real issue here is that like when people talk about the disparity between like martial and magic classes in older editions,
Yeah.
magic items give much more to martial characters than they do to spellcasters. Like they benefit spellcasters, but like comparatively it is a larger increase for martial characters. So really it helps to narrow the gap.
Yeah. Like it basically ends up being the bread and butter for them, where it's like it's what's giving them the edge to sort of catch up, because spellcasters, especially in old D&D, and I'm pretty sure in like current D&D we've talked a little bit about that, but spells aren't as ridiculous as they were because there's just so many levels of save or die, or just no save, Lamau die. But you know what I mean? Yeah, it's like it's that way to sort of catch up in that regard. Yeah, no, makes sense to me. Let's see what else. Oh, you have your epic fantasy. Okay, this is interesting. Because in these it sort of talks about like stuff like, you know, Dragonlance Saga and like going to the Hells and all this stuff. I haven't ran a campaign like that. I don't know if you guys have ever ran something like that. Whether it's like maybe you go to other planes or something.
Probably one of our like numerous like ones that didn't really get off the ground.
Oh man, dark fantasy.
I did have a concept floating around that was essentially
yeah.
I was gonna use the setting from Planescape Torment. What's that fucking city called? Sigil?
Yeah,
it's like Sigil, but you pronounce it wrong on purpose. I think it's Sigil.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. It's that town that's a circle, I think.
Yes, yeah, with the big labyrinth.
Yeah.
And the goddess who bases you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've had ideas for doing something set in that kind of setting that would probably fall under that.
Okay.
The entire point of Planescape Torment, or of Sigil, correct me if I've got that wrong, but it's essentially meant to be a planar like hub. So it's sort of like a crossroads between a lot of other like multi-dimensional like areas.
Okay. I don't know why my brain thinks of like Spelljammer when you describe it like that, but I don't think that's something completely different.
Kinda. I think I'm not as familiar with Spelljammer.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not something I typically deal with, you know, other planes and all that. Nor is it really anything I'm particularly interested in, because it's like I'm already like focused on making like one world,
developed area,
you know, like good.
Yeah.
Let alone like having a bunch of others. I know it's not like that. You don't need to go as in depth. It's just like a little spice, little something. But, and again, I typically run 3-5, and in 3-5, like the role of like other planes plays a much like smaller role. So to like give an example, like the 5e Dungeon Master's Guide, like they start talking about that shit like pretty early. Like I think like what, page 40?
Yeah, no, it was like
meanwhile,
even within the first section.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like the Dungeon Master's Guide 1 and 2 in 3.5, they don't mention it at all.
I don't blame them at all.
It's
because
mostly
it's a very complex thing. Yeah,
it's mostly relegated for like outer source books, and the main reason, and I kind of like that they did it this way, they keep a lot of mystique about the other planes, because it's not really common for people to do planar travel or to like exit the material plane, and you know, other planes are where things like demons and fae come from, and they're supposed to be mostly shrouded in mystery to mortals. Like we don't really know too much about like where these mysterious things come from. It dips into the realm of like the eldritch and the forbidden a lot.
No, and it's funny because I think at some point, because we've been mostly looking at like 5th edition books here on, you know, our streams where we've been doing Learning D&D. But yeah, those are things that I think I would like to look at, like, because I know I've played a bunch of 3.5 and Pathfinder with you guys, and those are like interesting books on its own that would be fun to look at, to even talk about too, or just, you know, pull up some sort of source and we can pull that up and talk about it at some point. But yeah, it's like I'm with you there, and it's interesting because you're right. I guess maybe it's just maybe how people write 5e campaigns now, whether it be I think it's like what, rewrites of older source books, or what's the word I'm looking for here? It's like third-party content or homebrew, where a lot of those campaigns do involve some sort of planar travel. Yeah, trip to the Feylands or Feywilds can be fun. Exactly, yeah, it can be fun if it makes sense.
You know, it's kind of look, I think at the end of the day, like it's kind of an Avengers situation a little bit, people have just started pulling on these other settings as a way to diversify, or otherwise be like, guys, we can't have vanilla adventure in Hobbitland because that's boring. When it's like, well, no, I would disagree with you there. I don't think it's boring if you do it well, but to be a little mean here, I think more people are concerned about cheap, easy ways to procure novelty over just like nailing solid writing, solid storytelling. Like it's kind of it's an easy gimmick to lean on. I think there are ways to do it well, and then actually I want to bring this up because not to sound like I have a distaste for planar travel, quite the opposite. I mentioned before how like I don't know if I said this on stream, but like I had plans for a Far Realms campaign setting, and the main point behind it is like, you know, planar travel is still meant to be restrictive, right? Yeah, but it's meant to sort of capture an almost like basic level of like whimsy and expansiveness of like, wow, everything is so different, it's so alien, and it's so like mysterious, and like that's a lot of the appeal of a setting like that, is to like make it
Batman,
feel
we need to go to space,
not like the same plane, like and so there's a focused purpose behind it, other than it's different just for the sake of it being different, I guess.
No, I understand that. Yeah, because you want, if you're going to go to another like plane like that, you want it to have a significant reason why, because that's a big task. You know, that's huge. Also, as I say that, as I'm looking at this picture of the Clockwork Minions, bro.
Although I will say, about the Feywild specifically, I did find that place to be particularly interesting read, because there was one of our 5e campaigns I played as a Fey, so I had to look that place up, and it was really interesting and very fun to sort of like integrate those like sort of like, you know, what their beliefs into that character, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, if you're, it's like anything else in D&D, you know, in terms of like lore or stuff that's out there, it's like you ought to put some thought into it to make it a part of your character, or as a DM make it a part of your campaign, rather than, you know, something you throw in there just for the novelty of it. That's just me personally. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, you know, I've done this long enough to where I find certain things boring.
No, fair enough, and that's totally okay. They're called Moodles, sir. Oh, okay, thank you. And it's funny because you were just speaking to the devil, and it's like, here we are, you know, creating the multiverse. It's like, yeah, at least in the sense of, if you're going to just make your campaign, I'm with you there. Let's stick with one plane, okay? Because you got to figure that one out. Oh, bro, look, there's Olympus. The world's treating a great wheel.
Oh my God, Mount Olympus.
Yo, look,
we need a dictatorship.
And we need
our man to,
you know what,
dude, he wants to take over Mount Olympus. All right,
it's Kratos.
You know what? Sure, take over Mount Olympus. I'm putting it on the list.
I seek the weed of Olympus.
and then wow, we got a lot of stuff going. Like from our whole discussion here, right into exactly like I didn't realize what page we were coming up on, and no, we literally landed into the multiverse page, which is very funny. By the way, rip multiverse.
Creating a multiverse seems like a very ambitious thing to do, like for a start. Because all right, look, I guess just to clarify, maybe the purpose of like where we rooted this discussion, since I showed up late, but like, you know, I assume this is like all aimed towards like people who are like less experienced with making campaigns, or it's like maybe it's your first project or a like project. Like,
ideally that was sort of the goal. It's like, if we're gonna make something simple, I would say when it comes to like these bigger like multiverse things, skip it for now. Don't eat, like, if you become addicted to the sauce, you want to be DM Supremus Maximus.
You're addicted to the syrup that comes from Mount Olympus.
And it's like, look,
that ambrosia.
The ambrosia.
That fine nectar.
I can't, you're killing me. But you see what I mean, though? It's like, when it comes to these bigger scale things, don't do it. You don't need to worry about this. Keep it very simple. Keep it very, like, enclosed. It doesn't look... I know we talked about much earlier where we talked about like mapping out a region. Do a small section. Don't need to be big, grand, world scale, all these different realms and everything. You're going to overwhelm yourself. If you're going to be starting fresh, you're going to be doing something simple. do it simple, okay? I'm going to be upfront, honest with you, and going straight to the point. You don't need to necessarily include all these different things like planar travel. You don't need to really get into all these different planes and realms and all that. Just, let's say, small region, okay? Give it a couple of settlements, maybe a kingdom, and then from there, go from there. And then see sort of how you feel being able to run that type of campaign, and how your players feel playing in that campaign, and see what adjustments you make from there. I mean, I've had to learn that the hard way, and I'm glad that you guys were here for that. But you know what I mean? If you're gonna genuinely take this as any serious advice, you don't need to worry about that craziness yet. Worry about it when your friends and players ask, "Oh, but what deity do they worship?" Or, "But what other planes are there?" I'm like, you wouldn't know. And you're
I just
allowed
think
to say
it's
no.
like it's hard. It makes for a boring conversation because it really just all circles back to the same foundational rule. But this is why I think foundational like stuff is important.
Of course.
Like anything, it should have a purpose if it's in your story.
Of course.
Point blank period. This applies to planar travel. It applies to your magic system. It applies to your NPCs, your gods, how you fucking use toilets in the setting.
Can we talk about...
if there's not a purpose for it, if you don't like have it, like there's no intention, like there are things that can be hand waved, or there are things that don't need a closer eye to look at. And yeah, like you said, if a player starts getting curious and asking about certain things, then you can kind of build out the carpet as they're walking on it.
Simple and fun is better than epic and boring. Exactly. See, you nailed it. So you're making a tiefling sorcerer who wants to become the ultimate demon lord and unifies the blood. Dude, now that sounds like a super sick idea, actually. No, but jumping back to like talking about the planes, I'm like, do we really need this section here where we're talking about psychic wind and the ridiculous effects it has here? Like,
I will admit that if I was reading this, like
this is overwhelming.
With, like, as a different person, you know, I would probably be a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, like this, like as cool as it is, like don't get me wrong, I think it's cool that this is in the book. That if you really got to a point, like you know, like if you eventually got to that point where you're like,
sorry, it's on the screen.
No, but like, you know, if you got to a point where you did want to run a campaign that had these big things, it's there. There's resources for you, but I feel like maybe including this so early on in the book is a little bit overwhelming if this is your first time, you know, DMing, because then you're like, okay, what's all these different things? Oh, okay, cool. Feywilds? Wow, that's great. There's a little section here on it. Wonderful, cool. And then it's like, okay, I guess time to roll 1d20. Okay, how much time is lost? It's like, okay, again.
Wait, hold on. I gotta ask.
Go for it.
The city uses slimes in their sewage systems. Do they like eat the poop? Are they poop slimes? Like, what's the?
I mean, I would assume it dissolves.
That'd be kind of clever.
It would be genius.
Y'all ever play Conker's Bad Fur Day?
Oh no!
Oh
no! Oh great! Oh man, let's see. Oh boy, there's the DC if you want to try to not lose your memories in the Feywild. Let's see, then you have Shadowfell. Again, these are really cool that they're all here, but I'm like, this is a lot. Like,
so I played with a DM who used Fey and the Feywild a lot in her setting, and like it was a lot more fleshed out because it's like you have major characters that have ties to like certain Fey lords that are NPCs, and like they're used as a narrative device, and it's like again, it's intention, right? Like you have a purpose for it to be there, and it works really well because you like use it, you know, instead of just being there.
Yeah, and like I said, it's like when you've got these purposes, it's like really good. Let's see. Starting out reading the DM guide alongside a module to see comparison in world building. Yeah. Let's see. What else? What else we got here? Oh my god, it's really just going through all the different planes, huh? Wow.
Yeah, maybe we can just keep it pushing.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that. All right, that's some sick art, but
it's interesting that this is just the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Yeah,
like,
no,
just,
this is vanilla.
This is the thing you
Dungeon
pick
Master.
up when. That's interesting. I mean, it's nice to have this stuff.
Oh
but
no,
it's
like I think this is a cool idea. It's just, it's overwhelming. I think it's a little bit too much.
I like that it's here. Maybe not put it so early in the book.
Put it in like an appendix at the back. Like if you want to know more, jump here.
I mean, old editions, they had the literal planar handbook that was mainly like an entire book dedicated to this section that we're going through right now.
Yeah.
The good old wheel. Yeah. All right, let's see. Are we finally out of the plains? Are we free?
No, now we're in the outer plains.
No! Why is this all here?
Buy my MTG expansion.
Oh my god. Yeah, now we're talking about the hells. Oh, hey, look, it's the fucking Clockwork World. Oh, there they are. I like that art. Very nice. Oh my god, we're still going. Oh my god.
Yeah, dude.
We didn't need all of this. Okay, these are actually...
Day 3.
Okay, these look really cool. I like these arts.
Okay. Are we getting into... Oh, that's the fucking Baba Yaga hut.
Yeah, look at that. That's
Yeah.
cool. I like that. That's a cool art.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, here's the fun part. You ready to do some rolling again? Because I know we're going to have to roll for our villain of the campaign, which is going to be silly. So this is like talking about what are the reasons you would have the players go on their adventure. This is also a very interesting point. You know, though it may resemble a novel or a TV episode, the adventurers need more than one outcome. Again, yeah, oh, this is interesting. Oh, okay, here's where we can talk about this. Otherwise, the players will feel that they've been railroaded or set onto a course that only has one destination. Interesting. It's, well, I mean, I guess it's time we really talk about this. And over here, it did bring this up, and this is more something that I went over like last stream, where it's like, in my opinion, when you're running D&D sessions, I'm okay with running sessions of like, maybe like arcs of a location. Like, let's say you guys travel to a new location, sessioners who can be centered around that and treat it as like an episodic thing. You know what I mean? Where it's like, it fits into the overall grand scheme of things, but it's okay if it's, you know, kind of how it is. How do you feel about that?
Sorry, you're talking about like doing smaller like campaigns, like
it doesn't necessarily need to be like campaigns. It can be like making your sessions feel a bit like episodic instead of like a long stretched out thing. I don't know.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you see what I'm getting at here?
Depends on what you have time for, right? Like, you know, I think people who only play D&D for like 3 hours tend to more run with the model of like, we're just gonna go for as long as we can, and wherever we stop is a good, decent spot to stop in the story. Is like where we stop, but that doesn't necessarily mean the sessions are like symmetric in their structure.
Of course.
Whereas like when we play, we'll play for like 5-6 hours or whatever, and so it's a bit easier for us to kind of have like cover an entire day in universe, for example. But like most people don't have that much time to play sit in one spot and play D&D for.
Of course, yeah. Let's see. Oh, this is actually kind of nice, talking about published adventures. Before I get into that,
sorry, I'm watching this owl take an eye exam.
No problem.
Twitch ad.
Yeah, let's see. Cruise.
He's really bad at it.
I mean, look, there's a way you can get around that.
$159, dude. Man, glasses are a scam.
Oof. True. Let's see. You've never looked at this book until now, and you've had it since you started playing D&D. You know, it's really funny because almost everyone I've talked to has told me that they really have never read either like the PHP in full or like looked at the DMG, and I can totally understand that. And I think the best way I've described it is when you're looking at these books as sources, treat them like a source, like they're textbooks. You can say, I need to look up something on this. Find the page, bam, that's the entry I need, done, good. Or you want to learn about topic, it's in there, look it up. Or just go to 5e tools. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the rule of thumb with it, where it's like, I'd say, are they a good read? You can get at least an interesting read out of it. I mean, look, we've been talking about this for quite a while, and we're like, what, page 72? But there's a lot of stuff to really talk about when you're going through the book to make a setting with the ideas that are presented in the book.
If I could weigh in on the good read point.
Okay, go ahead.
One thing I do want to mention is that, like, so I'm, you know, this is my first time seeing this book, and I've talked before a lot about reading D&D books for fun. I mentioned that I come from 3.5, and 3.5 has a
those
ton
books are so fun to read.
Books, like a ton. I mean, there's what, at least like easily 50, probably more, if we just count everything that was like officially like released under like OGL, like in that time period. And a lot of those books do setting stuff, and they'll describe like how, you know, like for example, like we just went through we just went through like a 3-page or 5-page blurb on like the 9 hells. Phoenix Codex 2 is a 300-page book that covers the 9 hells in 3.5, right? Like they really go deep on all these settings, and more so than like them going deep, rather than it reading like a guide where it's like, hey, you should do this, you should do this, you should do that. It's more like somebody just writing about their setting, and like you just get to read a bunch of interesting stuff about like like to use, I know Phoenix Codex 2 decently well, so I'll just use that as an example, like the soul trade and like the way like their society works, the lore behind it, the different geometry of the planes, because there's 9 of them, right? The various like archdukes that preside over it and the chains of command. There's a lot of like fun stuff to read about, but it's not being presented to me as like a guide or as like in a meta context. It's like reading a good book, and I feel like that's kind of a disconnect like here, where this book seems like it can't decide if it wants to do that or if it wants to give you instructions. Yeah, and that's kind of like the other thing that I mentioned sort of earlier at the start of the stream when me and Joe were talking about this, when I was talking about when I was reading through Curse of Strahd on the last stream. There's always a little blurb at the end of every section where say we talk about a location, the events that should happen, and the people who are involved. There is always at least 2 sentences that say, if the player attacks XYZ, this is how they deal with it or how they react. And I'm like, I roll my eyes because I'm like, I know why it's there, okay? It's there because there's always going to be one person, someone, may not be you, may not be me or anyone here, but there may be someone who may try to attack them, and how should they react? And it kind of got a little redundant where I'm like, it would be like a whole section talking about these are sort of the things that happen. Maybe this is how you would run the scene, how certain characters should react to information, and then you suddenly attack them. And then the book Well, to be fair, Curse of Strahd is specifically a campaign module, right? It's designed for you to take it and run a campaign with the box that it comes in, whereas like the setting books are just meant to be read. Those don't give you. No,
those are complete. Like in contrast, the other book I gave an example was Sandstorm, and Sandstorm's
Sandstorm's a good example.
Yeah, I like that book. That book's pretty cool. But yeah, it's stuff like that where it's like those are just very differently written to sort of say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's actually why I don't typically tend to read a lot of module stuff, because it usually is much more focused on like, hey, do this because this is for people who don't want to design their own thing. It's to have something pre-built to run.
And it's interesting because it's like I like the sections that were more interesting to me were the sections discussing the characters' motivations and different things like that. Like Strahd is a complex character. Some of the other characters can be complex depending on how you want to run them, but it gives you some examples of what's their motivation, why are they here, and like a number of other different things like that. So it's like I think there is value in those books, because obviously if you don't know what you're doing, you can run it, and again, don't run Curse of Strahd as your first campaign, but you know what I mean, there's those things, so that's something to keep into account. But I think I'm with you there. I kind of prefer the older 3.5 style of books, just because it's, especially when it comes to like when they describe like monsters sometimes, or describe like different settings of like, I don't know, a specific location that exists within the canon. You get an account from someone describing it to you, and that's a more interesting way of it to explain it to me, because now it's like I feel like I'm getting a better perspective of it than the DM over the shoulder whispering into my ear, you know what I mean? And that's sort of how this feels.
You see more of those blurbs of like somebody describing their encounter with like a certain like thing. I mean, in general, like even if I'm not going to run anything or I don't want to do anything with the knowledge, like those books tend to just be fun to sit down and read, like purely for the fun of it, and also, that benefits you a lot by just like giving you a passive understanding of like a lot of world building stuff.
Oh yeah. That, and also it's the amazing artwork in those books too that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Let me switch music track. That one was getting a little too much. Okay, let's see what we got. What else? Beginning. Oh, this is talking about like adventure structures, like beginning, middle, end. Talking about how you end your campaigns, different types of adventures. We kind of went over this. Let's see. Location based. See, identifying the party's goals and stuff like that. This could be kind of fun that we could sort of write down on here. Dungeon goals. Okay, so like let's take our example here. We still got to take over Mount Olympus. I don't know. To do it, they have to do a dungeon. So fun. Let's
My face one.
My face one, and they have to like go in. Okay, so let's see. Let's roll some of these tables for fun, just so we have these like as an idea for our section here. What do you think? You think that'd be cool?
Yeah, I do need to step away for like a minute, but
yeah, no problem. Yeah. I got you.
I like rolling dice.
I like rolling dice too. Okay, so let's see. Let me just write this down here. We have our dungeon goal. So like, let's. Oh wow, I spelled dungeon wrong. There you go. So dungeon goal, and let's roll our. Let's see, what are we rolling? Rolling a d20 here. What do we got? Rolled an 8 and rescue a captive. Damn.
Okay.
Okay. Rescue a captive. Just gonna put an 8 here, just so we know. And let me write our wilderness goal. Let's see, wilderness goal. And let's roll another d20. We rolled a 1. Wow, that's pretty convenient.
Are you serious?
I mean, it actually ties. Wow, okay. It actually ties in. It says locate a dungeon.
Are we just creating the God of War franchise? You're damn right we are.
Wow, you are for real. Okay. Come on, I'm not doing this on purpose.
I'm willing it into existence.
Yep. That's so funny. Okay, well. I can't wait till we get to rolling our villain. Oh, right, we have other things to roll. Okay. Let's see. Okay, other goal. Other goal.
Sure.
Look, here's the fun. Look, we're at the fun part where we get to roll a bunch of dice, I know. Alright, let's see. What do we got?
It better not be 12.
We rolled a 2.
Okay.
Okay, alright.
Defend a location from attackers. Yeah, okay.
Okay, got that. Okay, important NPCs. Adventure villain.
Alright, here we go.
Adventure villain. Alright, let's see. What do we got to roll? 1d20? What do we get? A 7.
Revenge.
Oh, lame.
Oh, undead with any agenda. Okay.
Okay. Undead with any agenda. I'm gonna write that we got a 7. Okay, who are the allies? Let's see. Welcome back. We're doing the fun part. We're rolling on tables for more details of our little campaign setting environment here. Okay, so we need to roll for allies. I'm thinking let's get 2 allies. So ally 1.
Come on, enthusiastic commoner.
Okay, ally 1. Inexperienced adventure.
Close enough.
Inexperienced adventure. And ally 2.
Villain posing as an ally. That's funny.
We got a raving lunatic. Wow.
All right, let's go.
That's
with allies like these, how could we fail?
Of course.
At least we're not trying to pilot a submarine.
You're right. You're right.
Deepest cut.
Very true. Very true. Did they bring back sidekicks? I don't know, but we can certainly say, okay, adventure patrons, sure. Who's gonna help our adventurers out?
Desperate commoner. No, villain posing as a patron.
Oh, dude. Aaron or other family member, bro, you get the barge, dad.
Yo, he's like, hey, I need your help with something. All right, roll a 1d20. What do we got? 1. Why do we keep getting 1?
Hey.
I'm getting it out of my system, apparently. Keep on rolling 1s. Yeah, alright. We got a 1. Wow, we're like super unlucky. Okay, 5. Let's see. Chapter 5 offers suggestions on fleshing out the locations, including tables. We'll get to that. Okay, the ideal introduction. Okay, I'm curious. I'm just gonna write that down.
Ooh,
The
one
DM
night
rolls
the
once.
characters all dream about entering the adventure location. Ooh.
Yeah, sure. Nobody here has ever used that idea before.
All right, let's roll a d12. Let's see. What do we get? We get a 12. A ghost appears. It terrorizes a village. Research reveals it can be put to rest only by entering the adventure location. That's really fitting.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, undead have any agenda for
Yeah.
the villain, kind of.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
And defend a location.
yeah.
God, we are so good at this.
This is. I know, dude. I've never been better about rolling dice in my life. This is so like.
This is kind of fun.
It's very granular. Like, there's a lot of like I've never seen this. Like, so I've seen this before, but
Yeah.
like, never seen it be this like thorough. I guess.
Yeah, no, I kind of like this because, again, I would say if, let's say, we're creatively bankrupt. Okay, hypothetical over. We're creatively bankrupt. And
I'm already
Yeah, it's
bankrupt.
completely hypothetical.
Yeah, of course. So we're rolling dice here to sort of come up with our campaign hook and our campaign. I do like that this is available because, again, like, if you're new to DMing, this is totally useful. This is very good to help you figure it out if you don't know. And I think as someone that, like, let's say I didn't know anything, I think this is actually a pretty good way to do it because it gives
Bro,
you some examples, it gives you some stuff. It's okay. Skip the whole chapters about the planes and all that. Just do this part. This part's fun. You get to get an idea and then from there make it your own, Let's see. Climax.
Bro, I'm so fucking brain rotted that I looked at the left on your notes. I read climax and I was like, no thanks.
Yes, please. I mean, what?
I hate you.
$5.
I want you, man. I
I get the
die.
happy ending.
I $50.
What am I gonna do with you guys? Okay. What is the climax of our adventure? Let's roll a d12. It is a threat of a more powerful than the adventurers appears, destroys the main villain, then turns attention onto the characters. Oh man.
Which one is that?
The greater evil, number 10.
No,
Oh,
Yeah, number 10.
I didn't see the roll.
yeah, it's very, like, I have to squint really
Oh, I
hard.
know. My bad. Let's see. If I do that, is that any better? Oh, it's way better. My bad. Yeah, okay, maybe not so much. Just trust
fine.
me. Just trust
That's why
me.
we have you reading that.
Product campaign, that's what you'll do with them.
Right.
Shit, he's right.
How did you know?
What if he makes this campaign, then we all have to play it?
Look, man, you get to go and try to stop him
You
before he
didn't
takes over
see
Mount
the obvious
Olympus.
conclusion to this stream? Because I saw that shit coming from a mile away.
Oh, man.
Fuck.
I'm
I
surprised.
should have warned you, bro. Sorry.
Hey, I'm gonna be the Kratos of this campaign.
Oh,
Let me
hell
tell
yeah,
you
dude.
what.
Look, man,
You're gonna raid Olympus for Zeus's
look,
weed?
man, he's gonna take.
Hell yeah, dude. I want that divine push.
Anyway, I don't know if this is ever, like, gonna... I guess we're not done rolling, so maybe
Yep.
I'll just wait.
Appears, destroys, other villain, turns attention to party. Okay. Now, let's see. Planned encounters. All right, now here's the other fun part. We already have our villain. We already rolled for him. Serial crimes. In that face. Okay. What does our villain do? What does the villain do? Time to roll. Okay, we got 1d6. Let's do that. We got 5. Serial crimes.
Hey.
Alright. It's gonna be a big burglar spree. Okay.
The
And
ghost burglar.
let's see, what is the party's goal? Let's
Our
see.
goal is to roll twice, ignoring results of 20.
Of course. Of course. Alright. Alright, let's hit the button. 11. Help a villain find redemption. Wow. Okay.
What if it's just a friendly ghost
Okay,
haunted by a tragic past?
I'm not gonna lie to y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like part of this is just like turning into a challenge because like we started with a few ideas and I'm like, oh, I see the line. I can cook with this.
Yeah.
And then the more things you add, I'm sitting here like,
Hey, man.
I'm like, how the fuck do I make? Well, it's funny because
'cause
so
it's like
I've
it
had this
kind of
discussion with
works.
some people before,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
it's the idea that like, oh, I can't make a certain thing work, or I can't like make a certain character or a certain thing work in a certain setting. And I've had to say a few times that I'm like, bro, if you like have the skill as a writer, you can make fucking anything work.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like it's the ability to make it work in a way that's like good. I guess that feels nice, doesn't feel forced.
Yeah,
and it like
is
feels natural,
definitely
and
the
sometimes
tricky
that
part.
takes more work than otherwise. And so in a weird way, I view this less as a tool that helps and more of a challenge of like, here's all this random shit, make this work.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
no, I can see that now.
Yeah.
Easily. Let's see, I killed the guy that you thought was the true evil. I guess I'm gonna do now. That's right, I'm going to rob a bank.
I'm gonna rob that fucking bank.
Absolutely, he's like, now point me into the nearest bank.
Bro, that's where I'm keeping all my money, dude.
Oh,
what
man.
the fuck?
Bro moons me on the way as he jumps out the window.
Wait, what the
Bro,
hell
the only
is this?
thing worse than killing my villagers is robbing me of my wealth.
Oh, this is interesting. Okay.
What?
Framing event. So we're not doing a, you know what? We'll just roll it for fun, but we're not doing it. Let's say framing event. If the party or the player, let's see, framing events, several ideas. You can use it to inspire your own framing event. Sure. Why not? What is a big event that'll be important within this section? You can base an entire game around a framing event or use an event.
Execution.
All right, everybody,
Execution.
time to roll 1d100. Let's see, best writing tip: get rid of the words and replace therefore this, of course. Okay, 1d100, everybody. What's our big gambit here? We got.
Violent
Are
uprising.
you fucking kidding me, bro? We rolled an 11.
Yeah? What's that?
Arrival of an important NPC. The
That's-
Tyranids attack.
What role is Tyranids attack?
40k.
I have to roll 40,000?
Yes.
Well, my modifiers are not that high.
Let's see. Complications. Moral quandary. Okay. Let's see. It's 1d20. Sure. Why not? What do we got here? Let's see. A crisis that no amount of spellcasting or swordplay can resolve. Add a moral quandary to the adventure.
I mean, not with that attitude.
I mean, there's always a way, am I right?
It's always charm person.
We got a 2.
There's always the Dragon Age method.
That's true. I like quandary.
child.
You know what? It's funny. Of course we get an ally quandary when the party's allies are an inexperienced adventurer and a raving lunatic.
Hey, checks out.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, that it's weird because I'm starting to see it all slowly coming together despite how like kind of schizo it is. All right, the twist. What is the big twist?
What a twist.
All right,
What the twist?
let's see. All right, well, we gotta grab our D10 again. All right, what do we got? We are an 8.
Just move to another continent. Morty, we have to off universes again, Morty.
All right, we got an 8. Completing the goal secretly helps the villain. You know what? Okay, that works. That works. And then side quest.
So we have a serial crime committing ghost who actually wants us to take over Mount Olympus.
Interesting. And then he gets zapped by a much larger, bigger, evil ghost. I see. This is
I know,
very...
that's why he zaps him, because like he didn't want us to take over Mount Olympus, but this bigger one does. That's why he zaps the old one.
Of course, right. And now, because we've stopped him, there's no army stopping him. I can't believe it. It's all coming together. All right, side quest. What do we got here? Let's see. It's roll d8. We got 8. Secure the 8 of a character or a creature in the... Son of a bitch. This ties back into the hostage situation where we have to find the captive in the dungeon. Wow. I can't believe it. It's all coming together.
Or get help from the raving lunatic, one of the two.
Yeah, that too. Okay, all right. I think we've got that. And oh, here's your favorite part, talking about encounters. And this is where it sort of goes back to what we talked about, where it was like talking about, you know, how would you give EXP? And this is interesting because this actually, I don't know if we in our campaigns have ever really talked about this too much, where I think we've talked about, what's it called? Different EXP tracks, whether it be fast EXP track or like a slower EXP track. I think we typically do, what is it, the medium? Because, you know, you don't want to level up too often, but at the same time, you don't want to level up as much. But again, that's just sort of how we run our campaigns, where we run our campaigns in a sense of like, sometimes we'll use, you know, our merits or et cetera.
Milestone usually solves this problem because you just level up when the DM wants you to level up.
Pretty much. But did you know there's also, what is this? Someone wrote a note in this. Oh, thank you. Good to know. Yeah, but okay. Challenge rating. We can talk about challenge rating. My favorite myth of D&D. Yeah, rating. I was gonna say.
So I am assuming that in this edition they mostly like fixed the problems with challenge rating, or at the very least they like tried a little bit harder to have it be an accurate representation.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure. I've mostly read things within the PHP. I've read portions of this book. This would be like more of my deeper dive into this. We've talked about a bit of it. We've talked about it a bit in... they did not at all. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Oh, God damn it. Dude. I was trying to be nice.
I'm not surprised because CR was like not CR is not helpful in old books. So because I get, okay, the problem why CR just can't really work super well is you can't account for everything. Because I guess let's say like we have a larger party. It can't account for anything more than 4. Let's say we have a party of maybe half characters that are very heavily min-maxed and a party or like half of it that are not. It doesn't account to sort of balance out. You know what I mean? It's like some characters are bricks. That's just how it is. You know? It's kind of complicated in that way. So CR is just kind of a toss-up in my opinion. Let's see. A shadow is said to be good for encounters for level 1s? What? The hell?
Yeah. Because it's like,
I don't know about that.
It's honestly, I'm if you don't even put the party into question here, like just challenge rating just doesn't make fucking sense for some of these things. Because it's like, in like, we'll take 3.5 for example. Yeah. You'll have like swarms, which are like CR 1, 2, 3, but swarms will fuck your shit up. Because swarms, well, their swarms are really hard to kill, and they can just hit you. And it's bullshit. Or like even getting past like some of the cheesier mechanics, like incorporeal creatures, you know, swarms and all that. Yeah. Where it's just like you have like more mundane enemies that are just like they just lie about how strong they are. Because it's like I think a hobgoblin is like a bugbear is like CR2. Like you look at like some like. Some relatively skeletons, and then you look at shit that's like assassin vine, which just fucking strangles you to death with like ridiculous saves, and it's just like it's only CR3. This shit's only CR3, or like shit that's like really poisonous.
Yeah, like that's kind of like my problem.
Slimes are huge, can be a huge offender of this shit. And I'm just like.
I was going to bring up the same thing. I have a specific example that I was going to pull up. That was it's like it's a swarm. It's an incorporeal swarm. It's like CR3.
Ew. What the heck?
It's like CR3, but it's like good fucking luck hitting it,
dude.
So it's just gonna kill your entire party.
Dude, incorporeal swarm.
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding? Oh, God.
Yeah.
Dude, that's That's diabolical, bro. It doesn't
Let's see
matter
if I
what
can
CR.
find the actual
Oh my god, yeah. If you can find that, tell me. That's, dude. Ain't no way, bro.
My ass, dude.
Dude, that's.
I don't know why the party died. It's
Dude.
only CR3.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
It's called.
We gotta know. Yeah.
It's the Ephemeral Swarm. It's from Monster Manual 3. It's CR5. Here, I found
Still.
the.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find the stat block for it.
Yeah, if you find that, I'll pull it up.
Is this the right one? It is. Yeah, I found it here. I'll put it in in chat here. It is a it's a 90 hit point swarm that is incorporeal and does a die 6 of strength damage with its swarm damage.
Oh my god.
It's CR5, but this could very easily wipe a level 5 party.
Hold
I mean,
on.
this is just
We're just gonna do that real quick.
its nauseate DC is 20.
Dude. Yeah, that's
And keep in mind, unlike regular swarms, this just does ability damage to you. So you're gonna die way faster.
Wow. That's yeah, that's not fun. I don't think it's good. Yeah, this is a fast way to get everyone very upset. Wow.
Well, I mean, you guys are all level 5. I thought you guys would be able to handle it, you know?
Ooh. Wow, rude. Alright, I'm jumping back to this. Thank you.
So anyways, I'm gonna bookmark this.
No! Don't do that! Oh my god, you're evil. Oh my god. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, this is interesting, the adventuring thing. This is the other thing too. They have this as like another way to do it. EXP gain per day instead of like based on like either certain other milestones or like other increments, whether it be EXP per kill. It's interesting. There's a lot of like, I was gonna say passages. There's a lot of like information here to talk about, like calculating EXP per character and stuff here. Again, I would just say probably go milestones. It's easier if this is your first time, because calculating the XP can be kind of a pain in the ass. Let's see, fun combat encounters. Oh boy, how fun are we talking? Terrain features that pose inherent risks to the players and the enemies, such as a frayed rope bridge. Let's see, pools of green slime. Okay. Elevation differences. Features that either inspire or force characters and their enemies to move around, such as chandeliers, kegs of gunpowder and oil, and other traps. Let's see. Adventuring Day says you have to at least have 6 encounters a day. No way. Hold up. We're running back to that. 1 second. At least, yeah. Assuming the typical adventuring party conditions, average luck, most adventuring parties can handle about 6 to 8 medium or hard encounters a day, bro.
Bro, my sessions can't even fit like.
We can barely run 1 or 2 in a session, dude. Hell no.
Two is like all right. We're running late, boys.
Yeah,
To be
yeah.
fair, this is like day and universe. They mean like
Okay,
between
fair enough,
us.
fair
Yeah,
enough.
you're right.
But-
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Even still, like, I can't think of too many fights that we pace out that are like, well, I guess it just depends. I think because of the fact that, like, combat takes a long time, right? Like,
Yeah,
combat
that's
just takes
naturally how
time
it is,
to
yeah.
run. And so
course.
it's like, would we rather have a bunch of, like, smaller, less challenging encounters that slowly bleed out our resources? Or would we rather just have those, you know, maybe 1 or 2 combat encounters we can fit in a session be, like, good ones?
Oh, this is kind of an interesting thing. Creating your own random encounter tables. Oh my god, you know, Math Haven if you really want to do it. I would just
Probability's my favorite.
bro, look at that owlbear. That looks
More
sick.
of a permutation kind of guy.
Oh man, look at all these. Oh, it actually is giving you a table here. Cool. I mean, you could do that. I would just say, me personally, I like to like handpick which enemies I'm going to be using for an encounter, and just like, I guess if you didn't know, I would say look at the table and at least check out some of these creatures that they have listed, and then maybe consider using them in your campaign. I typically just really wouldn't be running a table. I mean, you can. It totally can work. I mean, one of our friends in this previous campaign that ran 1 session, he used an encounter table. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know which campaign you're talking about.
It was the only 5e session I've ever played.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Anyways, so, you know, you can make a table. You can run a table like that. Honestly, I would just say, look at the examples on the table, and then from there, maybe pick and choose what you want to do. You can run a table, but again...
I think this is helpful for people who are like, I have no fucking idea what kind of things are in this forest, and then here's a list of creatures that are in this forest.
This is definitely helpful for that. Absolutely helpful for that. Damn, I like this owlbear art. Anyways.
Always got a little spaghetti on his mouth. You better clean that up.
Oh, he's got the ravioli dripping. Anyways. Let's see. You handpick two, unless they go out of the way of the players. Yeah, okay, fair enough. And see, you're lucky if you get 2 good combat encounters. Exactly. That's kind of sort of how we are, where it's like, it's very hit and miss. You don't want to run something like that. Oh, okay, this is kind of interesting. Let's see, creating non-player characters. This is other like tables you can roll, but like this is like if you're rolling every NPC over and over and over. We're not gonna do for this. This is like monotonous. You don't need to do this for every character.
I've seen a lot of tools that automate this process.
Oh, definitely.
So you can find websites where they'll basically just generate you NPCs that use pretty much these exact same metrics and methods, but it's like you just hit a button and things just get served up to you.
Yeah, like I think
if you're doing it en masse, like you need to make like 20 NPCs, like could be useful.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, aren't there things like D&D tools? Like, does D&D tools actually do that?
D&D tools is not.
I would assume it has.
Yeah, you would have to like specifically Google like character generator or something.
Yeah, because I'm sure you could totally do like a bunch of stuff like that. We can skip a lot of this stuff because this is like
look at that beholder. Look at how many lawsuits were fought over that beholder.
Oh, dude. Look, at least you don't have to get him drunk, okay? That is such a specific thing that I don't think anyone but you will figure that out, Kombucha.
It's the deepest of cuts.
Oh, man. Let's see. Low-level followers. Wait a minute, are hirelings a thing in 5e?
I think they've been a thing in every edition.
Yeah.
You typically can pay a certain fee to get an NPC of like a certain class to, you know, help your party out. It's mainly for like more old school traditional DMs who like let's say that like we pulled up to a 3-0 game and we had a party of like 2 wizards and a rogue. We really probably could use a cleric and a fighter. Yeah. So stuff like that.
Yeah, because I don't think we've ever, at least in the campaigns that we've run personally, I don't think we've ever actually done something like that before. So okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, sidekicks are a thing.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. Optional rule, loyalty. Oh, okay. It's funny talking about loyalty for NPCs, NPC party members. I remember reading, or like I think it's like there was a video I watched where they were going over like the original like D&D book. Hirelings are very mean. They will steal your stuff constantly. You don't ever want to give them a magic item that you can't afford to replace because they will just take it and run. Yeah, in the book it specifically says if the player gives hirelings magic items, they will steal it and run. If they give them, and it's like a ton of stuff dependent on alignment, and it's hilarious because if like it's a cursed item, they will not know if it's cursed or not. Like it's diabolical because even in rules as written,
is so mean.
There's so mean.
There's this handbook that just reminds me. There's this handbook that somebody wrote for necromancer players to like it's a whole fucking deal. But one of the things they suggested you do is if you get so there are so you can get holy arrows basically. Yeah. The way a holy arrow works is that if an evil aligned creature holds a holy arrow, he gets a negative level.
Yeah.
There are unholy arrows that work on the inverse. A good aligned creature that holds it, or I think even neutral, gets a negative level. So what you do is you get a whole quiver with like 20 of them, right? Yeah. And you pass it to somebody, like a hireling, who then holds the quiver and dies because he instantly gets 20 negative levels, but creatures who died at level drain come back as whites.
Dude.
And this is something he suggested you do.
That's so to get fucked up. That's so, dude. That's so fucked up. Dude, that's some creative levels of power gaming. Okay, now the fun part. We have to roll our villain scheme. We already made our villain, but what is his scheme? All right, let's roll. Let me pull up our number roller one more time. Pull up. There we go. We got our good old dice roller. All right. rolling a d8 first, and then we roll a d4 after we get the scheme.
4 or 6.
All right, we got a 4, so it's mayhem. So mayhem is category 1. Okay, and
6.
1 die 6. Okay, we got a 5. So
Trigger a natural disaster.
Man, he's gonna make Mount Olympus explode.
Bro,
Yeah.
No, you sure?
No, I'm good. I don't know.
Too bad. I'm gonna say it anyway, bro. He's gonna make Mount Olympus boss, dude.
Oh my god. Let's see. You looked at your Conca page, and you have about 200 NPCs made for your content, and you've recently been thinking about this once the campaign ends. Let's see. Oh, interesting. Really? Man, then in that case, I was gonna say, oh, I guess you're gonna be writing another 200 NPC. Oh, that's mean. But no, you can definitely like write up something about like what happens after that to them, and sort of like give the in between. Oh, we got more fun stuff. All right, what is his method for causing this natural disaster?
Agricultural devastation.
Dude, that goes hard. That goes crazy. Okay, hold on. Methods. Hold on.
Confidence scams.
That's talking. He's Destiny.
Oh my god, this just goes on and on and on. Okay, all right. Let's see. 1d20 for the first one. All right. What do we got? 12. What is 12? Murder. Very classic. All right.
Euthanasia involuntary.
That's crazy. Okay. All right. Time to roll a d12. Damn. 4. Drowning. Okay.
Okay, we're just writing an episode of Supernatural now.
Yeah, now we really are. Okay. Oh, his weakness. Dude, that art looks cool, though.
I mean, there is, if I recall, there is like a 3/5 druid spell that literally fills your opponent's like lungs with water.
Oh, you're right.
It's fucked up.
It's in fact not just a druid spell. Also, it sucks.
Wait, how do we create a Okay, I do like that. Physic's good point. How do we create a natural disaster with murder?
Okay. Hear me out, bro.
I'm hearing.
Carbon overloading.
What?
You just gotta kill a hell of people.
Okay. Sure. All right.
No, that's it. I mean, like, if you want me to actually cook, bro, human landfills.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
No. I was just thinking, like, you know, maybe like we're next to Mount Olympus, we like kill one of the gods and like frame, you know, our city state. So they like.
Oh, dude, we're cooking.
No, yes, kill Poseidon.
Dude, we're cooking.
No, don't kill Poseidon, bro. He always dies first.
Look, we're cooking.
No, you don't kill Poseidon. You kill someone who he loves. You kill Poseidon's lover, so he ends up flooding the city.
Oh my god, dude, we're
That's
cooking.
actually a really good idea.
Bro, we're cooking right now. All right, let's see. You know how I'm writing that in.
Oh god.
All right, there we go. Okay, weakness. What is his weakness? Let's find out.
He should kidnap or kill like Poseidon's daughter or something, so that he's like stricken with grief.
Calypso.
And,
Thank you. Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Krista.
No, that's who you have to save in the dungeon. There you go. Okay. We rolled a 3. Is weakened by the presence of a particular artifact. Okay, so MacGuffin.
Wait. Hold on. We're killing. Hold on. Who's Calypso? The daughter or the? Fuck, I need to look that up. But like we're killing someone affiliated with Poseidon with drowning.
You know,
I think the idea was that he murders somebody
in Earth or drowning in mud, or they're drowning in lava. I don't know.
Well, I think the idea was that he murders somebody and then triggers Poseidon to flood the city, which then kills the residents of the city with drowning.
Okay.
Oh, I get you. Yeah, that works. It
Wow,
really
this is-
isn't Odysseus.
Dude, for real. Holy shit. Wow. Oh, I was wondering where this was. Okay, so Death Domain and Oathbreaker are in the DMG. They're not in the actual player's handbook.
No wonder these classes fucking suck. They're not meant for players.
They're meant for DMs to force the players into. Yeah,
well, not force the players into it. I think these are for NPCs. They're for like the actual.
Well,
villains.
no,
This
like
is
it
class.
actually is like written in for. You can give this to a player. You can use.
You can play
that.
this, yes.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, because you would give these to players as a thing. Oh, and they're good for NPC classes. Oh, that's nice art. Okay. All right, here's the fun part. We have to roll locations for things. All right. Here's the fun part. All right, dungeon location.
In a cliff face. On a mountain peak.
All right, we got to roll 1d100.
Exotic location.
Oh man, this is gonna be fun.
Manifest will.
We got
into dice roll.
94. Son of a bitch! It's underwater. Dude,
Oh my
swear,
God.
I'm not doing this on purpose, but I think we're kind of cooking.
Yeah.
We're cooking, all right.
Oh yeah, all right. Exotic location.
Wait, no. We don't. We didn't
you're right.
get a 96 to a 0.
Oh, you're right. You're right. We didn't. Okay, next.
I mean, we could anyways if you want.
You know what? It's a fancy underwater location. How about that? Maybe. You know what? Just for fun. Let's see what we get. And if it works, it works. If not, we're not doing it. 7. Castle or structure sunken in a swamp. Perfect. Never mind. We're adding it in. It's a sunken castle. How about that?
Yeah.
Sunken castle.
Dang, is this what it's like to use ChatGPT?
At this point, it feels like it.
Honestly, that's the stream. You just feed all this to ChatGPT and
Oh,
make the
man.
setting. I almost be curious to see what it comes up with compared to what we just did.
I know, right?
You know?
Let's see. All right, dungeon creator. Who made the dungeon? Who made it? All right, 1d20. I swear. What are we gonna
It's
get?
a lich.
It is dwarves. I don't know how they did it, but sure, I guess.
What the fuck? I mean, might have been for a different purpose, and then they died, and then oh look, a castle.
All right, cults and religious groups. Okay, what do we got?
What purpose does
D20?
this serve?
I guess it would be who is worshiping in this area. I don't know. That is kind of a weird thing to sort of just include on that. Oh, and there's like dungeon history, dungeon purpose. Oh, that would be more important. You know what? Let's skip the cult thing. Let's do the dungeon purpose. Why? All right, dungeon's purpose. Let's roll a d20. Got that.
Maze.
It is stronghold.
Ah, works too.
Yeah.
If it was a maze, we could put a minotaur in there, you know?
Oh yeah, you're right. And history. Let's see, another d20. 16. Cursed by the gods or shunned.
Let's go!
Wow.
Can't stop winning.
Dude. Okay, well, it worked. Oh, here you go. Thank you for the beautiful little map here. Oh, it's crooked. Oh, wait, no, I see what they did. They made it
They
straight
tilted the page.
so the map would be straight. I see.
Ah.
Interesting. Let's see. Okay, this is talking about different qualities, different things about that. What else we got here? Oh, mapping wilderness. Okay, monuments. What?
I am gonna have to bow because I gotta run to the store before they close and buy food.
All right, no problem.
But hey, I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thank you for popping in here, Mr. Kombucha. I'll catch you later.
Have fun. Good luck.
Yeah, I know, right? Thanks. All right, let's see. Monuments.
Fuck. No. He's leaving because in like 10 minutes I gotta go too.
Oh, don't worry. We're getting ready to wrap up in a bit, so you're not going to be missing too much.
Okay.
Let's see. Monuments. What do we got here? Let's see. We got to roll another d20. The Minotaur. Oh, yeah. What you do is you put the sun... Oh, that's genius. Oh, my God. All right. We got a 9. Intact Perchin of the... Wow. Wow. Okay. Intact statue of person / deity. I spelled deity diet. Deity. Okay. Weird locations. You know what? I'll throw in the weird location. And then I think that's enough for us to work with. What do you think?
Yeah, we gotta stop at some point.
Yeah. Let's see. Weird location. 1d20. We got a 5. A crystal cave that mystically answers all questions. I mean, that's certainly
make a
different.
religion out of that.
I'm gonna have a lot of fun working with this stuff. But yeah, and then I think the rest is like just weather, foraging. Yeah, this is all just like stuff if you were gonna go and do like more advanced settlement stuff. But again, I would say this is if you're gonna be making multiple settlements, this is fine, because again, this is if you wanted to roll for more stuff for creating the setting. Obviously, if you're gonna do it, do it. You don't have to, but that's okay. You have like different things, like it has like who is in charge of the settlement. You know, what are the... Wow, I'm not going to read that a lot. You got notable traits, things it's known for, like whatever calamity is going on there. What else? We got random buildings. Yeah, answers all questions in the most literal way. You know what? I'm adding that literally. Literal way. Bam. All right, and yeah, this is just building a settlement. Now, again, I think we talked about that earlier. When you're building a settlement, it's really just purpose. Like, I think like an example of that's good enough. And underwater encounter, I'm not going to look at that right now. But yeah, no, I think the rest of this, yeah, this is just like, okay, so this is like if we were going to do like a seafaring campaign, there's more additional information like that. This talks about traps. And other things like that. Again, when you're doing traps in your location, really try to make it make sense. And again, the thing to remember is traps are lethal as hell, as you can see. Good old rocks fall, take 10d10 bludgeoning damage and knock prone, or, you know, pass a save, you know, with the good old rolling spear. But I think we talked about that the last time, and this is talking about downtime action. So I think we've basically covered what I really wanted to talk about within this book, because I think everything else post this is more like nuts and bolts, talking about magical items, other things like spending limits. You need to pass the bar exam to properly ask a question. Exactly. But you see what I mean? Like, there's a lot of like other things involved in here. Also, what the hell is this? Training to gain levels, sowing rumors. Oh, these are just more additional downtime actions. Oh, dude, this art looks sick, actually.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good. And then this is talking about, like, treasure. Again, I would personally, like, when it comes to treasures, it's like, unless this is that type of campaign that you're doing with your friends, typically, in my opinion, I would just mostly stick to, like, giving an item that's worthwhile. Maybe scrolls, maybe rods, but that's about it. So, you know what? I think we've kind of got enough to work with here. And I think we're kind of good on this. And let me just do a quick time check, because I know we're coming up on our usual time here. And on that note, let me just save this. I'm going to save our list here for later. And don't worry, I'll do a little write-up on this. I'll put a little handout together, and we can look at that next time, and we'll look at maybe some other stuff. Either we'll take a look at that. I think what we'll do for the next D&D stream is probably talking about monsters. We'll look at, the monster manual, take a look at some different examples of monsters. We'll get Kombucha on, and he'll show us some custom monsters, and maybe we'll talk about like 3.5 monsters and sort of how they're different. And of course, and that means you're more than welcome to pop back in whenever we get to that, whatever that is, if you would like to, Jay.
Right.
But let me just transition us back and get us ready to sort of pop out for the night. So 1 second, let me just switch up our music. Let's get some a little bit more upbeat while we get ready to get out of here for the night. In which I gotta say, hey, if you're still sticking around here, appreciate you. By all means, feel free to drop a follow. Usually streaming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. This week's a little bit of a shifted week, where we're starting Tuesday and ending on Friday. But, typically I like to get at least one D&D stream where we talk about stuff. Then other streams, usually playing some other games with my friends and other things as well. But let me transition us back over to the chat room here and let me get some music playing. You know what? Yeah, we'll do this. This will be fun. Have this on in the background. Nice. So, I gotta say, thank you again, Mr. Joe Lazy, for popping in here. It's always fun having you in here, either when we're playing an RPG or talking about TTRPGs. So I gotta say, thank you again. Here are my links. Usually throw announcements for stream up on Twitter or Blue Sky, whatever floats your boat. And I have the YouTube channel where shorts come out every Tuesday and Thursday. We also have a VOD channel, which VODs are coming out Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And the main video coming out soon. So I gotta say, thank you again for anyone who's still popping in here. Anything you sort of want to shout out here before we pack it in for the night?
No, nothing in particular. Although I am looking forward to picking back up on this, because I do want to see something happen with that list.
Oh, don't you worry. I'm gonna get to work on that one, and we'll have some fun with that. I'll write up something fun. We can maybe do a little talk about it. Maybe come up with some monsters that could work for that little setting too. But yeah, I gotta say thank you again, everybody, and I think we're getting ready to head up for the night. So. I think that's about it for me. And yeah, we'll catch you tomorrow. We're probably gonna hopefully beat Dragon Age. Maybe. I don't know if I'm at the end. I think we're close. I mean, it said prepare for the final battle, so I think that's a safe bet to say that's the end, right? Well, I think we're good to get out of here. Have a good night, everybody, and catch you tomorrow. See you later.